Good evening. Good evening. If we can settle down, we are going to get started in just a moment. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am just waiting for our live stream to start, so give us just 1 second and we will be ready. We are going to convene our public hearing and hear from the district on the instructional time model remote learning presentation.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Gunning. It's weird. Okay, you're all there. All right. Tonight, Laura Combs and I will be presenting on the instructional time model. This is our second presentation and for public hearing. So afterwards, if there may be public comment from people that want to speak on it.
Actually, Gina, while you're getting prepared, I'm just going to comment on that as well. There is a specific call to the public for this presentation only. If you would like to speak, it's only on this topic. You can do so just following this presentation. You can fill out a form in the back and hand it in here, and we'll also give you a chance after the presentation is done.
Yes, there's a special form for this one. It's the one that says instructional time model, the full sheet of paper. Okay. So the legislature passed a bill and the governor signed it into place, allowing school districts to approve their own flexibility with alternative instructional time models. And as long as you meet time requirements where your remote instruction does not go past 50%, it will be counted at 100% funding level. And anything that goes over that 50% could be calculated at a 95% base level. And we would use this flexibility to offer remote learning either at the student, classroom, school, and or district level, depending on what the circumstance would be. So more specifically, we've been looking at this immediately for isolations and quarantines. So when kids are getting sent home for those 10 days, having something that they could immediately go into that's tied to the Arizona standards and tied to what they're working on in the classroom, that they can go on English, language arts, writing, math, science, and work at their own pace. Some of the components that we're looking at, the instructional approach would be the teachers would manage the learning and core content areas through their Google Classroom or the self-paced program and alternative materials as needed, because we want to be flexible for students that have different needs. The schedule would stay the same as if they were attending in person, so it would be expected to be like a full day of school. And attendance would be documented in our system where we document attendance for in-person learning. If they attend virtual instruction, they'll be counted as present, and if they submit assigned work, it would also be counted as present, similar to attendance taken during distance learning. Aligns with our strategic plan for student success, allowing our students to continue to access the curriculum and instruction when they cannot be in person. And it allows the district to continue to receive 100% funding because the students would be working on their work at home online. And it provides an extra option and opportunity for students and parents. We think this is best for kids because it maximizes the learning opportunities for our students when in-person learning is not an option due to health and safety concerns. And this allows students to be able to stay connected with their teacher and their classmates. In addition, it would be available to all students to access at home or at school for remediation or enrichment. So that was in addition to the last presentation that we gave. So originally we were looking at buying several hundred licenses just to be able to accommodate our students with quarantines. But when we looked at the packages that are offered, we thought it would really be great to benefit all of our students, and we could provide a lot of supplemental instruction tied to the standards that would help close some of those achievement gaps that happened during COVID for all students. The financial impact for the district using some of our ESSER funds, would be purchasing Screencastify for all teachers. This year, we immediately did it for the Digital Learning Academy. And so Screencastify allows them to record lessons and have them up in their Google Classroom. And then purchasing Edgenuity would be the self-paced online learning program that we're looking at. And that would be about $300,000. And we have written that into our government, the governor's grant application, which is also called the Education Plus Up grant. And we will continue to receive 100% funding as long as our students don't go over 50% of their time online. And the way that we would keep that program sustained and aligned to our curriculum maps is by stipending one teacher at every grade level to load the standards for that grade level. So when the students go into quarantine, the standards that are teaching that are in Edgenuity are directly aligned with our curriculum map. And then every 2 weeks, they would be reloading. And as we move on in the process, we will give teachers, all teachers, the professional development they need to be able to do this themselves if they wanted to do that and they wanted to use this as a resource in their classroom. And then Laura Combs is going to talk a little bit about Edgenuity.
So once we talked about doing this program or finding something for our students in quarantine or isolation, I did spend quite a bit of time looking at about 5 different programs that are out there that are in this self-paced. And it was really important to be able to be very easy to implement for our staff, for our students and our parents, and then also to make sure that we would have the ability to add our own standards in and make sure that they were mapped to what we were doing in our classrooms, but then also that it would be, the licenses would be renewable and reusable, meaning I'm a student in quarantine, I get a license, I come out, another one's in quarantine, so it was back and forth. That eliminated some of the programs that we were looking at because they couldn't meet that piece of it. And so when we looked at the entire package, Edgenuity met that. And we also liked the fact that Agua Fria is also using this. So our parents may already be familiar with it as well because it is our high school district's online program as well. It's self-paced for all students to use to supplement the curriculum, and it provides that Arizona standards-based resource for students in quarantine and isolation. They call it courseware is what it's called, empowers teachers by giving them access to flexible courses, rigorous content, and powerful online tools and reporting to support them in every aspect of their learning. We will be able to get real-time data and also reporting features along with, it will track their attendance as well, so that takes a burden off of somebody having to, check and make sure, were they online, offline? Yeah. So that will also be included in that as well. Another piece of that is that for 6-8, there is an online live on-demand tutor in that content. So if they're in ELA and they can't access something, they can request an immediate online live person that is a certified teacher. That's their only job, is just to be that tutor. And they have some tools within the program that will allow them to have that interaction with interactive whiteboards and things like that. For K2, oh, there's the video. I'm not going to play this video unless you really want me to. But the interface is very simple. When they enter the program, what they're assigned, the content that they're assigned sits kind of like in little bubbles. And so they just click the bubble and it takes them to exactly the lesson. So there's very little click here, or click here, click here. It's just, I'm going to do ELA, click that. And it starts for them. Another really nice piece of this is with our package, we actually get access to everything. So world languages, technology, courseware. So if a student is really interested in something else, they would be able to access that as well in a self-paced module.
Mrs. Combs, can I just ask you how long that video is?
3 minutes.
I would actually like to
Sure.
see that because I'd like to have an example of what our parents are going to be seeing and our students are going to be seeing if possible.
Okay, there's a K2 and there's a 3-8 and they're fairly
Either
similar.
Either one is
similar.
fine, whatever you think is a good example.
Okay. All right. It switched on me here. It says I can't access it. Do I need to sign into my account? Sorry about that. Thought I'd embed it and it would work. Should work now. But now it needs to switch, right? Okay. So we'll embed this on our district website, so it'll play right from the website.
As you know, this is a self-paced program for all students to use to supplement their curriculum by comparison and standards-based resources for students in quarantine and isolation. Accessing the courseware. Students begin by logging into Clever using their LESD Google account. The Clever link can be found on the Litchfield Elementary School homepage at lest79.org. If your child does not know their Google account, please contact your child's teacher who will be able to provide that information to you. Once logged into Clever, students select their grade level Etchnuvy icon and will be automatically logged into the program. Before beginning any courses, students will be required to view an orientation video that is approximately 8 minutes in length. This video explains how to access courses and support tools. Teachers think about tomorrow expert thinking and problem solving. Within the course, there are built-in videos to assist students. Students are actively engaged in learning. They can stop and rewind the instruction as they are taking notes. Closed captioning and read aloud options are available. Students will find important lesson vocabulary in the glossary. And there is a printable transcript for every lesson. Content can be translated into over 60 languages. Additionally, appropriate tools are available, including highlighter, calculators and math, and a grammar notebook. For students in grades 6 through 8, guided notes are part of their courseware. On-demand tutoring for courseware for grades 6 through 8. On-demand tutoring is available for grades 6 through 8. Students can connect with a live concept coach from within their lesson. Students can click the tutoring button to reach a concept coach. Concept coaches are available 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Saturdays. Concept coaches are responsible for working with students who click on the student support button or call into student support. They do not have a class of students they are responsible for. Their only job is to respond to students' questions for support. A concept coach can utilize an interactive whiteboard to support students on the exact skill or concept they are struggling with. For additional questions or concerns, please contact Laura at the provided information.
So that was an example of the 3-8. The K2 is just a little bit shorter, and because they don't have as many tools built in. I don't know what. Maybe close this. Oh.
Okay, and so this impacts our students, staff, and our families. We can go to the next slide for the next steps. After this, there will be a call to the public for comments, and then a recommendation later in the meeting for the board to adopt a remote learning instructional time model, and then make it retroactive to August 6th to 2021, to the beginning of the school year. If possible, there's still not complete clarity that ADE approves that, but they said go ahead and write it that way. And if it works, that's great. That will help for students that were missing during some of the beginning of the school year. And then we would begin our communication rollout to our stakeholders, and we would submit the instructional time model to the Arizona Department of Education. And if it's approved tonight, we will begin everything tomorrow. Begin the rollout tomorrow. So we are ready for questions. Do you want to do questions and then public comment?
Yeah, I think I'd like to. Let's go ahead and have the conversation, and then we'll invite people up if they have additional questions or comments. I will open the floor for questions.
I've got a question. The 300,000, how many licenses is that? And it's for 1 year? Is that the?
It is for 1 year, and it is for licenses for every student in the district.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So,
11,000.
okay. And so, but somewhere there's a requirement that if over 50%, no, let's see. Isn't there a limitation with the grant money or something if it's over 50%, but we're not going to hit that, right?
There's a limitation with the instructional time model with the governor's model, is that we can't go over 50% remote instruction. So like closing a school and having students online for months on end would probably put us at risk of doing that. But
Right.
with this model of students using it for being out for quarantine, we wouldn't even come close.
And then if students are not out on quarantine, they're not remote learning, do they still have access?
They do. They will have, so the immediate rollout will be for quarantines and isolations to make sure that those kids are getting the education that they need while they're at home. And then the next phase of the rollout would be training teachers and parents so that all students have access to use that as a supplemental source of education.
So if some parents, let's say that a teacher wasn't quite on board with it, is it such a thing that if enterprising parents could get logged in, get a login and have at it if they wanted?
Yes. And Laura, if
Okay.
you want to be more
Nice.
specific.
So this year we rolled out a tool called Clever, and it houses basically all of our links, all of our educational programs. Kids only have to log into that, and then whatever they are assigned to, they just select that icon and they're automatically logged in. So Edgenuity would be assigned to all 11,000 students, just like our ELA curriculum is assigned to all. And so they just select that and they're in. And, as we move through this, we'll start to add some maybe enrichment pieces. We'll add the specials pieces, the technology, the world languages. We don't want to overwhelm kids thinking that if they're in quarantine, they go in and they have to do all those things. Those will be optional for any student at that point.
Thanks.
To stay on that topic, what is the timeline for phase 1, phase 2? I mean, you're saying if this is approved, it's basically ready tomorrow. So in terms of like actual dates, right? If we're approving this Edgenuity, it's only for 1 year. I'm assuming, right? We'll assess whether we need it in the future. It's a considerable amount of money, right, for 1 year, but it seems like it's a great program. So if I'm a parent of a child that is not in quarantine or isolation, when is it likely that I would receive communication? When would that rollout actually happen so that all students can take the most advantage of the program for the full year?
Sure. So my intention is if it's approved tonight, I will be sending out communication to our principals to start recruiting those teachers that are going to be kind of our content specialists to add the standards. I already have a training on the books with Edgenuity if it's approved for the 24th of September for that group of teachers. So my intention is to figure out who they are and have that training on the 24th. I personally am going to upload the content for the first couple of weeks. So we could potentially, as soon as Edgenuity gets a PO, Clever rosters overnight. So it takes no time for me to do that. We could be up and running the next day. And my intention is to also make like a 1-page infographic that a student is being sent home for this situation. We hand this to them that has the instructions, direct them to the website to view the video. And they all know how to get into Clever because we've been using it this year for other things, and they could potentially start.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh.
It sounds like it's like, comes out to around $28 per student. Is that about right?
Going back to the beginning of the presentation, I believe it was on the flexibility slide. You said we're going to offer this for students during quarantine, isolations, et cetera. Laura, in your administration board report, you also mentioned that it could possibly be used when substitute teachers are not available. Can you explain how that would work?
Pretty much the exact same way. The content would already be loaded, so a substitute wouldn't have to do it. And because we are, stipending these teachers to continue with that, every 2 weeks that content would be loaded. And so let's just say we don't have a teacher that we've been able to hire, which we have a shortage. We could potentially have an aide that's kind of monitoring the class. Kids would go in, access their course content, and complete courseware that way. It is scored, it's graded, so it will take grades, and it will track their progress as well.
So this is something that kids could literally do all day, is what you're saying? I mean, they would,
Absolutely,
it would
it
be the
could.
curriculum for all different pieces of the day.
Yeah, let's say we don't have a science teacher at a middle school. And those kids that are in that science class, they'd still go to the classroom, but they would be accessing the online self-paced program. And have access to the online tutor as well.
Okay, that is making me uncomfortable. I can't explain exactly why that's making me uncomfortable, but are you saying that we will be utilizing this program in lieu of having a certified teacher in a classroom?
No, but it's a possibility because we do have vacancies in some of those areas that principals are having a hard time filling. So this would be, just opens up another possibility for that to be, I mean, we haven't figured out a logistical way to make that happen. We'd have to work with principals to see if it could, but we would certainly never forego hiring a certified teacher and replace them with this. But where we have a vacancy and trying to make sure that the students are still getting some science curriculum and instruction, this would be an option.
And so in that classroom, I want to make sure that I heard this scenario correctly. If we don't have a full-time hire in that classroom and we don't have a substitute teacher, because in theory, a substitute teacher would be able to teach the curriculum themselves, or would the substitute also be utilizing this curriculum?
If we had a substitute in the classroom, we would have them follow our regular curriculum. But if we have a situation, which we often do, where we're short substitutes in our schools daily, so plug for anyone looking for a side job that wants to be a guest teacher, this would be a dire situation where you have no certified teacher, you do not have a guest teacher. So do you have a classified staff member that could supervise that class? And these students could access the science standards, AZ science standards tied to our curriculum map and have that happen. So it's kind of a backup.
And it is very rigorous content, very rigorous.
I kind of look at it as a different way, as an opportunity. And I know we discussed this when I started here, the idea that the traditional classroom, it's a finite number of kids, but if different periods during the day, you could have maybe 60 kids or 2 classrooms together following this coursework, but that would free up, maybe you didn't have the 2 teachers, you only had 1 teacher who could actually be going around giving personal attention to kids that need it, so it's, I don't know I call it sort of a stratified concept where parts of the day you're having more of a, let's just call this automated teaching or whatever. And then, with monitors, with teachers that can make sure that, kids aren't setting the school on fire or something. And then I'm being facetious, but then, then that allows them to be more personal attention. And then maybe parts of the day for an hour or 2, teachers could be with 10 students instead of 20, you know what I mean? Because you really don't need to stick with that 25 students or whatever per class all day long if some of this is. So is this something that Edgenuity, those people, or is anybody trying that? Do you know, or is anybody thinking about that, or?
I'm not sure about that exact answer, but some districts are using this solely as like their online academy, their AOI, with no live instruction like we do with our digital learning academy. And if there's one thing that we've learned through COVID is that we can never have enough backup plans or enough options.
Right.
And we are trying so hard not to get behind the 8 ball again, like to keep planning for the future. And if this happens, and is this the worst of the sub shortage? Is this the worst of the teacher shortage? Is this the worst of COVID? We don't know. So the more things that we have available, and then we have like just constantly thinking, how could we use that in that situation, and just keeping all of our options open. And this gives a lot of different opportunities for us. But like I said, with our main purpose being for quarantine and isolation in the beginning.
And I agree with everything you're saying. It's a defensive approach. I'm not trying to denigrate it,
Mhm.
but it's a defensive approach rather than looking at it as what opportunities does it present to sort of a stratified thing where it could really be flexible. It could be changed. If you had a bunch of teachers didn't show up, you could just sort of modify, lean on some of the other paradigms, for used in other parts of the day. So I see it as an opportunity. I like to look at
That's
opportunities.
kind of how we look at it too.
Yeah, well, good.
So I was just wanting to ask to follow up. I too feel a little uncomfortable with the idea that our kids will be in school potentially doing this. But I do understand it's just another option for us, and I'm all for having lots of options. What does that do for funding if our kids are in school in person, but they're using this online program in the classroom? Does that change our funding to be online versus being in person?
No.
Okay, I have one more follow-up question. So on slide number 4, where we talk about instructional approach, and it says teachers will manage learning in core content areas through learning management systems, Google Classroom or self-paced program. So really that could be replaced with Google Classroom or Edgenuity and alternative materials as needed. One of my primary concerns throughout COVID and quarantine and isolation has been, and remote learning in general, has been consistency for our parents and our students. Part of what was said during this presentation was that we want to offer these different styles or learning management systems to meet the students' needs. My question is, are we customizing this per student? Are we saying we think this student is an independent learner and so they would be fine doing the self-paced program versus this student needs more potential interaction with the teacher? Or is a teacher choosing one of these because that's what they deem to be the best for their classroom management style?
That's a great question. So how we would like to see this rolled out with the teachers is this is for, if you look at our different plans for, you have 3 to 5 kids out of your classroom, here's what you do. You have 20% of your kids out, here's what you do. That Edgenuity is the option. That kids do that, but we still want our teachers to continue their Google Classroom and meet with students via Google Classroom. However many times middle school is doing it, like 2 to 3 times a week, and elementary is doing it. So we still need that piece. We don't want to send them home for 10 days and get on Edgenuity and never see your teacher again. So that's kind of what the combination is there. And we also don't want to say, if you have a student struggling with something and a parent calls and it's like they're really not getting this lesson, our teachers generally go above and beyond, and they may want to send a little something extra home. But no, we're not customizing this. We would expect every teacher to have the kids on Edgenuity, and then we would expect them to continue meeting in Google Classroom.
Okay,
Especially because of the attendance piece. Google Classroom doesn't allow us to track their attendance. We can see that they logged in, but we don't know how long they were on. So with Edgenuity, it will track their attendance as well, which we need for the funding piece as well.
okay. I lied, I have one more question. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to think about this as a parent and as a teacher and as a student. So I know we have this curriculum map. My question is, I understand that Google Classroom is going to be the teacher recording their lessons, and then the child can potentially watch those lessons that day, the next day at some point. So they're going right along with the rest of their classmates. How rigid are we district-wide with the curriculum map? How likely is it that a 6th grade classroom at Wigwam Creek is learning the exact same thing in that exact same 2 weeks as a 6th grade classroom at Western Sky or Verado Heritage? And if that's not the case, if they're not super consistent, then is it a matter of all the standards will be out there and the teacher will say, we're working on standards 1, 2, 3, and another teacher at the same time can say, we're working on standards 2, 3, 4. how does that work together?
Well, just keep in mind that the standards are pretty broad. So while the content may vary a little from school to school, and yes, not everyone is on the same pace, that's for sure. And so loading those standards at 2 weeks at a time in the content, it won't match perfectly to everyone. But also, as we get into this a little bit and all of the teachers get their training, they can also go in. It's not very difficult for them to go into Edgenuity for their students and click different standards. And then Edgenuity loads the content. They're not creating the content, they're picking the standards. So, but the standards are broad, so it's pretty good, but you're right. I mean, the pacing is an important piece, and some teachers may right away want to learn to do that and have like exact specific control over that, and other teachers will line up a little bit better.
Okay, and when is that PD going to be offered to all the teachers? I understand the 24th is the training for the stipend teachers. When will all the teachers be able to get that training?
Well, we haven't for sure, but I think you want to talk about it. You were thinking about rolling out.
I have 2 more that are scheduled in the plan, in our pricing plan, but they are not set on the date. Because really our intention with this was to also make sure that we're taking as much work off of the teacher's plate so that they can also continue to concentrate on the students in their classroom as well, and then have that personal connection with those students that are at home without having to load videos and record a lesson and then, edit the lesson and put packets together. I mean, it's a lot for them. And so our intention was to try and relieve some of that. But they have on demand. So if a teacher is really gung ho, they can log in to Clever and log into Edgenuity and start doing their webinars right there.
Okay.
But we have the live PD piece of it, well, virtual live. And we have 2 more. So I haven't set the dates for those because we want to see how this first part kind of goes out. And then to also gauge what the interest is from our teachers about loading their own content.
Okay, last question, I promise. So if we approve this tonight, when will we get a report back on usage?
Give us a month, 3 to 4 weeks of implementation, and then we'll report back.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I've got 2 more questions. You mentioned there were some school systems that are using this entirely for the online learning
Yes.
at home. What systems are, which ones, just for example, just curious?
Well, Agua Fria is using it as part of their online academy. And I know several others are. Mesa is using it
For elementary?
for their AOI, yes.
Okay,
I believe they're using it K-12.
okay. And then also, does anybody, everybody, I'm sure they want to present it well, but is there any metric of academics of how this compares to other options or compares to no option or just using your Google, Classroom or whatever? Is there any expectation of what it's going to do? Are we just trying to hold on to academics or improving, or where
We're
is that?
trying, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead. I
Okay.
think
Well, we're trying to improve academics, and that's what we're hoping with this, with that continuous stream of, I guess, academic knowledge coming to them, even though it's an online program. It's consistent, and like I said, they can work at their own pace. So if they want to continue to work ahead, they can work ahead.
so we could say it's more efficient. Would that be
It hopefully will be more efficient.
Yeah.
We're going to monitor it very closely as we roll it out and see. But I just think it gives all of our kids more opportunity to access learning.
Mhm. So they have the access. So I guess what the question would be is the motivation. Is it self-motivational, like they feel, they reach a little benchmarks or?
The program itself tries to motivate the kids, with little pop-ups and badges and things like that. So it is
the K2 is adorable. You know, it's got like little figures and it almost like, if you ever watched Blue's Clues, you know how they had the background that's kind of a cartoon, but then it's a live person. So a lot of their videos look like that. There's the immersive reader, so it reads to them, highlights the words as it's going through. They can replay it as many times as they want.
So I detect that you're excited about this.
I'm excited about anything with ed tech that we expand in our district. So yeah.
We're excited about the immediate impact, but then also the possibilities.
Good,
Are there
thank
any other
you.
questions? Thank you. I just have one last comment to wrap up. No questions really. I think this is going to be well received by parents and students that have, have unfortunately been in quarantine or isolation as we move forward. I think, you kind of hit it very clearly for me, is that it's the consistency of educational opportunities from when they're in school to when they're in homes, when they come back. We don't know, to your point, how long this is going to last. My comment though is I think outside of getting this launched and training and all of the other to-dos that we have, I think one of the most important pieces is going to be consistency. So no matter whether your child goes to Barbara Roby or Brado Elementary or Western Sky or any of our schools, that everyone will have access, but also knows about it and knows to do this. I think having access is only part of the problem, but actually knowing about it and the teachers and the communication that goes out to actually, point them in that direction is really important, because we're going to start this almost immediately. And most people probably, unfortunately, are not listening to this intriguing conversation this evening. So anyway, just make sure that it is consistently rolled out across the district so that every student has access to this, because it seems like this is really going to help us create some opportunities to not only maintain their academics, but increase and enrich in some areas.
Thank you. We will do that. And the feedback that we've received from principals, from their teachers, is that teachers are excited about this, and they do see it as a great way for their kids to continue learning and less fragmented, because they're not putting something together every 2 weeks for them. It's loaded, it rolls with the standards, and it rolls with our curriculum maps. So,
Great. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so I will open the floor to a call to the public. If anyone has comments directly related to the instructional time model presentation? No? Okay. I move that we adjourn the public hearing. I will second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned from the public hearing. And I call our regular meeting to order. Before we get started this evening in our regular meeting, I would like to ask that everyone take a moment of silence. We had two very important people to us in the district pass away recently. The passing of Jen Romine, a beloved Palm Valley Elementary School preschool teacher and a second grader at Barbara Roby Elementary School. And also we're marking the 1-year anniversary of the passing of Lisa Lomalino. If you'll just bow your heads for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Before we start with our pledge, I just want to welcome two very special new members to our team, our IT team. We have Danny Echeverria, thank you, waving back there, our YouTube streamer, and Hunter Schlag. Thank you very much, guys, for helping us out, making sure that everyone can see and hear us and everything works well. We appreciate it, and welcome to the team. And now if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. To start, I'm going to welcome Ms. Megan Duplain up for our activity to commit under our conscious discipline Brain Smart Start.
Yes, so something that we do across our district before staff meetings and before we start school is to get everybody on the same page with a quote or something that will keep us focused for the day. And our message for today is, when you can't control what's happening, challenge yourself to control the way you respond to what's happening. That's where your power is. Mr. Jenke presented this to his staff this week, and it was one that really got me thinking. And I'd like us to commit. Another thing we do with our children and our staff is make a commitment. It's a personal commitment of when you feel triggered, when you're faced with adversity, that you will attempt to control the way you respond to that adversity. So governing board members, if you're willing to do that, give me a thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Moving on to one of my favorite parts of our agenda, if you're following along, 4A, our recognitions and celebrations. And today we have Laura Combs again with us and Corby Naylor.
Well, I do not see the person that I'm hoping to recognize, or I'm recognizing today. But I would like to announce that Jamie Schmedeke, who is a teacher at Mabel Pageant, and myself, we have earned the Iste Certification, which is, Iste is the International Society for Technology and Education. And I don't want to brag or anything, but this is a big deal. There's only about 900 people that have this certification in the world. So to earn the certification, candidates must complete approximately 40 hours of rigorous professional development, including 4 in-person courses and then 9 weeks of online coursework. Candidates then have 6 months to assemble an e-portfolio that includes artifacts and reflections in learning. There are approximately 900 Iste certified educators worldwide. And Iste certification for educators is the only internationally recognized credential for educators who have demonstrated mastery in the Iste standards for educators. Iste certification focuses on pedagogy, not on tools or devices, and is designed to change educational practice. So I am so thrilled for Jamie, and I would like to congratulate her.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to you both. I know that was a lot of work on top of all of the other professional development that you do for everyone else in the district. So congratulations.
Good evening, Governing Board and Superintendent Gunning, President Clymer, and our community and my colleagues. I am Corby Naylor. I'm the principal at Scott Libby Elementary School. And this evening, I have the privilege of recognizing a very special part of my school family. At Scott Libby and in the Litchfield district, we know how crucial our family partnerships are with our community and with the parents and guardians on our campus. So the Scott Libby PTA, our Roadrunner PTA, is an outstanding organization that goes above and beyond daily for our staff and our students. Our PTA, the most pronounced that I saw that was last year when we had COVID close downs happening, and they found innovative and creative ways to connect and engage families and to make our students and our staff feel incredibly supported. So tonight, they are being honored because they received the national award. Excuse me for turning my back to you. I just want to address them. The National PTA A+ School of Excellence. It is a national award, and it was only given to 2 schools in the entire state of Arizona. So in the words of the president of the National PTA Association, as a National PTA School of Excellence, your school and PTA will be known as a national leader in family school partnerships and as an outstanding example of a successfully engaging families in continuous school improvement. You've demonstrated what 40 years of research has proven. Amazing things are achieved when schools and families work together to accomplish a common goal. Your school has mastered these commitments, and we applaud you for doing so. And we have in attendance tonight, either virtually or in person, our executive board, which is Bibiana Rice, Melissa Andrews, Carmen Blackstone, and Andrea Thomas. So if we could give them a round of applause. And I just personally want to thank you for the love, the passion, and the energy that you pour into our campus every day. We could not do what we do without you.
Just quickly, we have had many conversations, especially in the last couple of months, about parent involvement and how to increase that on our campuses and models that we can use to do that. And I think this is one shining example of how schools in our very own district and our very own community are being successful doing that. So number one, congratulations and kudos to you for all of your hard work. Number two, please share your knowledge and your wealth of knowledge with other schools, because I think this would be great to have more of these right here in our community. Thank you. Moving on to 4B, our Learning Recovery Planning presentation with Megan Duplain.
Good evening, governing board members, Superintendent Gunning. Tonight, I am presenting, I'm going to take Corby's lead, take this off so I don't bend over. Tonight, I will be presenting our learning recovery planning that we did in regards to the Sr3 money and the governor's grant, or the Education Plus Up grant, which is the governor's grant. This by no means reflects all of the work that all of our sites and departments have been doing in regards to learning recovery. This is simply for the Sr3 money and the Education Plus Up grant. So let's go ahead and get started. So in regards to the Sr3 plan, we took some steps to ensure that we were seeking feedback, using data, et cetera, to make some really good decisions to add to this grant. So first off, we created an Sr3 planning team. That team participated in a data review and analysis discussion and brainstorming with Brian Owen, where we really looked at our AZM2 data and any data he had. And if you all have worked, which all of you have worked with Brian Owen, he is brilliant in regards to looking at data and taking a non-emotional approach to helping us see specifically what we need to address and what data is discrepant from the past. So what areas we need to really focus on for learning recovery. From there, our principals and directors met to review data, identify needs, and generate ideas for this plan. And then we surveyed our staff and community, and our cabinet then reviewed and analyzed all of our survey feedback along with the recommendations from the Sr3 planning team and our administrator recommendations. And then we created the Sr3 plan. So our survey went out, and here's a breakdown of who participated. We had 730 responses. And this was our breakdown from parents, employees, and community members who participated in this. There was a lot of comments and a lot of feedback given. We really took it, and our team looked at all the comments. We grouped them into which one had the most comments and what common themes there were to make sure we were listening and truly taking into account not only our data, but the recommendations that we had from our staff and community. And from that, here are the main things that that were consistently brought up in our survey and the recommendations. Class size, hiring teachers, aides, and drivers, counseling, social emotional learning and mental health, interventions, reading and math, math and STEM programs, reading, English language arts programs, parent involvement and engagement, tutoring clubs, after school and summer, incentive pay for teachers and staff, quarantine instructional support, and tech, laptops, hotspots, broadband. These were the main things once we went through all of the comments and the responses to our survey.
Megan, before you go on, are those in priority order?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
They're just
So what?
general.
No, those were the ones that had several comments about, but they are not in priority order.
Okay.
So from there, we looked at, let me go back. So we divided it into some 5 areas, I believe, that we decided we needed to focus on. And the first one was staffing. When we saw our data, and when Brian led us in that analysis and discussion, what we quickly realized was we needed learning recovery in math. The data that we saw, we needed to intensify what we were doing, not only to address the gaps that we saw, but it was extremely discrepant from the year before. So from anywhere between 23% and 48% in 3rd grade math, each school was discrepant from what the year before COVID. So that told us that we had to really look at our tier 1 math, which is that math curriculum program that we're doing for all of our kids, and then intervention programs as well. So what we looked at first was we needed to get more support. What we were hearing from the feedback and the hearing is that all of our staff right now are stretched and they are doing amazing things, but we can't ask any of them to do an additional thing and expect the results that we need to get once we saw our data. So we decided that a math aide per campus and a math specialist per campus to focus specifically on the needs that campus has in regards to math, to get interventions, to be coaching teachers, helping with data analysis, and really drive the team in addressing the discrepancy that they have in their math data. The next thing we found was instructional programs. So a part of this, remember when I presented the Sr3 grant in, I can't remember, time is so weird for me right now, maybe last board meeting, we talked about 20% of the ESSER plan had to be specifically to address learning recovery in some of our subgroups. So we involved our administration and team in special education and EL, and we really looked at their data and determined that we had to address some of those needs. So special education realized that they needed a reading intervention program, an Orton Gillingham-based program. I'm not going to go into a lot of details with that right now, but it's a specific evidence-based program to address the reading gap that they were seeing since COVID. We also needed to update and intentionally choose some intervention programs and resources for our EL students because the data show that they were impacted greatly from COVID. And then special education and tier 3 executive skill development curriculum we need to address some mental health needs, to ensure we had an evidence-based program to directly address those needs. And then evidence-based supplemental math support programs for each site. The reason this was put in there, and I will talk in a minute about the governor's grant or the Education Plus Up grant. I think Corby and I were too loud for it. In the governor's grants, we are using part of that for a math tier 1 curriculum so that will address kindergarten through 8th grade. However, in this Sr3 plan, we determined that yes, that will address tier 1 all of our schools across the district. However, each school is going to have specific needs based on their individualized math data. And we wanted to give some autonomy to the principals to identify those needs based on their data, to add additional resources and supports in regards to programming and materials to address those specific needs. The next thing we had was supports for students who are quarantined or isolated. You heard Laura and Gina talk about Edgenuity. That's written into the governor's grant that I'll talk about in a minute. But we also know that it is so important for our children to have direct contact with our staff. So we added to the Sr3 plan stipends for staff to tutor students for 3 to 4 hours per week for 30 weeks. And that is anybody who's quarantined during that time or isolated. We will be rolling out. We have not done this yet because we are waiting for the Sr3 plan to be approved, but we will be looking at finding volunteers of teachers who would like to do tutoring for the children who are quarantined and isolated and paying them to do that service. Another thing that came up was after school and summer learning opportunities. In our Sr3 grant plan, we wrote in after school tutoring, after school clubs, 2 days tutoring, 2 days club. One of the things we know is that the children's mental health and sense of connection to their school family is important as well. So we wanted to make sure children had that opportunity to engage on their campus in different clubs to address different needs. That will address our academics and those mental health needs that our children have since COVID, and it'll give them that exposure and experience with their school family. And then a four-week summer programming at every school. That was another part of it. Let me go back to that for a second, even though I'm not getting into a ton of details about that. Both of those written into the plan and the cost that we put into the grant include transportation. Now, we know transportation is struggling right now so bad because of our lack of staff, but we put in there money that would possibly could be used to contract staffing to ensure that we don't shut the door for any child to access tutoring, summer programming, or clubs. Parent education and involvement, parent classes, program licenses for families in need of English instruction, and early literacy resources and supports for parents. These were some things that came up within the survey that we wanted to ensure we addressed through this plan. And then mental health. We are one behavior technician on every campus, supplies to support positive mental health, and professional development for the behavior technicians and behavior coaches and student advisors. Our children are coming with different needs, and we have to make sure we're addressing those, and we're planning and empowering our staff to support our children that are in need of these services. And then professional development. You all have heard us talk about professional learning communities for years, and Solution Tree is who we get this training from, and we learn a lot from, and they have a lot of resources. And so each campus will be provided money to access this professional development on their campus. This will help them understand how to look at data, how to identify needs, how to tailor their instruction based on the data. So it'll be pushing us in the direction of just ensuring our practices are in alignment with our data so that we are moving forward in closing the gap and then beyond in our achievement data. And then an incentive plan to address staffing shortage. This is on the consent agenda as well. As we know, if we do not get our children to school, they cannot access their learning. And we are 18 student transporters short and 9 monitors right now, and we're really struggling. So we reviewed different plans across our area of different school districts and what they're doing to attract, retain, and incentivize student transporters to come to work and come to work for us. So we have a plan that that is on the consent agenda to incentivize our current staff and any newly employed student transporters through this year to come join our team. And then this is the second one, the governor's grant, and that is called Education Plus Up Grant. And what we included in that is our math curriculum adoption, K-8, a district-wide math specialist. Because like I said, we cannot add all these math specialists and not have someone who will oversee them and train them and guide them. So we needed to add a district-wide math specialist to ensure that we are looking district-wide at our data and helping our math specialists look at their data and provide support for them. The Edgenuity self-paced learning program that Gina DeCoste and Laura Combs presented, 1,460 laptops, and those laptops will be used to help children access our programming and mental health materials for our schools with 6th through 8th graders. We needed to ensure that they have enough resources to address the current needs that we are seeing in our children in regards to mental health since COVID has started. The timelines for the funds, the Sr3 funds must be spent by September 30th, 2024, and the governor's grant funds or the Education Plus Up grant funds must be spent by May 31st, 2022. And I'm here to answer any questions for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will open the floor. I have a couple of questions, but I'll open the floor for any questions or comments before. Right, I'll jump in with mine, if that's okay.
Yeah, I will.
Let me see. I apologize. You talked a little bit about the timing to implement the grants themselves. In terms of the staffing plans, the additional math aides, the specialists, things like that. Obviously, knowing that we are in a crisis, a shortage of staff, we just talked about. What is the timeline to, do we have those people available that we can move around? Are these new hires? What does that really look like in reality where we are right now?
Yes, and that is an incredible question. That is the question that all of us are asking right now. And we're going to sit down and plan for the rollouts. There is a strong feeling amongst many of our staff for the math specialists to wait until next school year because most likely, or there's a possibility that could take someone out of a classroom, some of our math experts, and we don't have anybody to fill that. So we will be gearing up for that most likely to roll out next year, but all those plans will be made in the next 2 weeks for rollout for each staff member that we added in regards to Sr3.
Okay, so we have additional time. These are not coming from the governor's grants. We have additional time to utilize those since it's not this year. Okay.
Because remember, it'll be 3 years. So September 30th of 2024. So we will have the next 2 years to have that staff member in practice. Right?
Correct.
Yes.
So the math curriculum that you mentioned, kind of the tier 1, Matt, what is the timeline for the curriculum itself?
Miss Wendy, the governor's grant. Well, we have a timeline for the math curriculum. Gina, do you want to talk about that for a second? Or because remember, when we're adopting a curriculum, we have a specific timeline to
no, absolutely. I mean, I know we're probably 6 to 8 months out from doing that just based on reviews and getting involvement from our community and things like that. I guess you can give me the specifics, but really the bulk of the question is, if we're hiring math aides and specialists for next year, if we're 6 to 8 months out on a curriculum just based on that's how long it takes, what are we doing in the interim, knowing that this year we already know what the learning loss is, and looking at the data, we already know what that is. So what are the short-term fixes that we have available to us?
Okay, well, those would be your intervention programs.
Yes.
Sorry, Gina, I did want to hear what you have to say. So I just wanted to let you know what I was really trying to get at.
Okay, so our short-term fixes are our professional development, our math aides per campus. We will be able to, once our grant is approved, to add those. and we can, train and support them. And then our intervention programs that we'll be adding for special education and EL, we'll be starting those as well. And then the supplemental math support programs, as soon as the grant is approved, we'll be able to do those, right? For the things that are in ESSER 3, we are waiting for the approval. We have to wait for the approval. And we're not sure of the exact timeline on that because neither is Arizona Department of Education at this point right now. But we'll be able to begin getting those things in place as well.
Okay.
But like I said, the school teams have so many other things in place. Data review with Brian, specifically based on their data, their professional learning communities. What are we doing to tighten up and our intervention program, our tiered programming? So they are doing so many things right now beyond this. This is just the 2 grants that we basically are, for the ESSER 3, for sure, we have to wait for its approval before we can begin implementing these things.
Before we can act. Understood. Thank you. Moving on to the supports for the students in quarantine and isolation. We've already talked about Ingenuity. We've gone through that. Also, you mentioned stipending staff for tutoring and things like that. I'm assuming this can start quickly just in terms of once you get volunteers of people that want to do that. Obviously, we have a limited number of teachers and a limited number of hours that tutoring will be available. How will that be administered to students? Is that based on need? Is that based on just, I raise my hand, I want to do it? How do people find out about it? Like, how is that going to be administered?
Right now, our cabinet is meeting on Tuesday to design steps to get some of our principals and different directors to lead the process to roll this out, to design it and lead it, because we feel we need their expertise in this. But for the stipends for staff, we are looking at 1 per grade level, K through 5, and 2 per grade level, 6 through 8. Now, if we don't have that many who are able to do it, then we'll have to figure it out. But that is how many we budgeted for in our grant, in hopes that we could find that. And that would be 3 to 4 hours per week, basically what they'd be able to provide and what their children need, and the number of children they have quarantined and isolated. And if you saw our data this past week, the quarantine numbers were relatively low comparatively compared to the first couple weeks. So that will be based on the amount of children they have quarantined and isolated, and they'll be able to decide that. But the amount of time and money we have budgeted is 3 to 4 hours per week for 1 person per grade level, K through 5, 2 through 6, 8, for 30 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
About the grants, I know you said that even the ADE doesn't know when the ESSER 3 funds, but what is your guess? I mean, if we talk weeks, months, years?
It's hard to say because we received an email asking for volunteers to go help approve the ESSER 3 grants because they're short-staffed as well. So we are hoping, we're hoping in the next few weeks, but it's hard to tell because they have not given us a timeline.
Okay. And is it ESSER funds, I'm sorry, it's from the Fed? Is that where it comes from?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then the governor's grant, what's the timeline on that?
The application I submitted last week, they've changed the requirements and sent it back. They've added additional requirements for everyone. And that has to be submitted, I believe it's by the 29th. So towards the end of the month. So we'll get that submitted, and that turnaround normally is a little bit quicker. So hopefully within the next month, we'll know for sure.
A month or 2, yeah, a couple of months.
Wendy, while you have the mic, can you just remind me how much the governor's grant is, please?
1.8, right, Wendy? 1.8 million.
And we have a crisis with the math thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so how fast are we going to change the paradigm or go in and do something without waiting for ESSER funds that may be, who knows when? What concrete plans are there to teach kids how to add and multiply and all that stuff?
right now, each principal is working with their staff, with Brian, to analyze their data to get a plan, a site-based plan to address the needs in regard to tier 2 reteaching and tier 3 intervention. So our children that are far below grade level right now, getting their interventions in place and getting a plan. And those will be site-based based on their data. And then the tier 1 curriculum will hopefully be in the next 3 months. That we'll have a new math curriculum that we can roll out to intensify that instruction.
Yeah, because I mean, what I'm thinking is just like, when we're talking about the, the online I forget what it's-
Ingenuity.
Yeah, Edgenuity and whatever is, I think we need to brainstorm to go look at what opportunities it presents rather than just being defensive. Because we're not, our math scores plummeted, ostensibly from COVID and all the other weird things that have been happening, but it wasn't all that great to begin with. So, it seems to me that it's really time, since we're in a transition, we got to do different things to really brainstorm about how to. I mean, I've seen schools with my own kids where they had nothing, very little, and they had seemed at first to be kind of cruel things that they had to use to get to certain levels in the class with multiplication or whatever. And then after you saw it and you went, wow, this was genius, because it really worked, and it worked with all the kids. And it just sounds like everything, everything seems really institutionalized into, a curriculum driven that just is just not working too well. That's to me. I don't know why, with all the technology and all the stuff we have and resources today, and schools that just had a few books, and a chalkboard, did way better. I know our culture is different, and there's a lot of things going on, but wowie zowie, I don't know if we have to invent a lot of new stuff. We need to maybe go back and discover some old stuff that kind of worked. And right now, everything is like, well, we got to get a bunch of experts and hire, go out and do training and stuff like that. I don't know about that. I'm just talking, and that where is some focus of a think tank, you know what I mean, to say, hey, what can we do with what we got to drastically change it? And so I look at the whole COVID thing. I told Ms. Gunning about this. Hey, with all this COVID thing, this is a great opportunity to reinvent. And we shouldn't be reinventing defensively. We should be using the opportunity that we're forced to do other things. Yeah, I mean, look in real life, something, you lose a job or whatever, you start figuring out better ways to run your family or whatever, so that's, everybody in real life has to deal with that. And most people are pretty ingenious at coming up with solutions. So I don't know whether it's just the inertia of having a huge organization or what, but we need to get rid of some of the inertia that's come up with some inventing. And I know it's risky because you invent things like Edison and you fail 200 times, but nobody wants to be accused of you failed, but that's how the light bulb got there. Amen. I'm all done.
I have a few questions. Do you have more?
I just had one more,
Okay,
and
go
then
ahead.
I'll open it to you. And you may have this on your list as well. Jeremy was just talking about training, and that was my last question was on. I know we have done through Solution Tree and other companies, we have done professional development in the past. So my question is this the same training? I know PLCs have been around for a long time, and we've tried to do more in our district to make those successful. Is this the same training we have done before that we're moving over?
No.
Okay.
So if you look at Solution Tree's website, they are constantly evolving with the latest research and the latest data and the best practices, and they're supporting the growth. So what our teams will be able to do with this money is identify what their needs are and talk to Solutions Tree gurus or experts on tailoring what their specific site needs. We're not doing it district-wide because each site is going to have specific needs based on their data, and they'll be able to tailor that with Solutions Tree to push them to their next level wherever they are in their PLC process.
Okay, and will this take the place of already scheduled training?
They will.
You know
work-
what I mean? Like, it'll take the place of district training because we only have so much time for them to do.
Yes,
PD during the year.
they have site days and they have district days, and we will ensure that it's worked into those.
Kim,
Hi. My questions are primarily related to this resource distribution. So we're given this resource of $8.8 million total, $7 million in ESSER 3 funding, and the $1.8 million in the governor's grant funding. So when I look at the things that we're planning to spend the money on, I am fully supportive of the extra supports related to math based on the data that we have as a district and based on the feedback. But I do have a few questions specifically as to how we are utilizing our data for the greatest impact towards student success. So my first question is related to the laptops, 1,460 laptops. We had a specific conversation about the ESSER 3 funding that we didn't want any technology or facilities included in those funds. We wanted it to be 100% related to learning loss. Are these 1,460 laptops being specifically used for learning loss?
Yes, so first off, the 1,460 laptops are in the governor's grant,
I
not the
understand
ESSER
that.
3, but
I
I hear
understand
you.
that.
I hear what you're saying. Yes, so basically the one-to-one plan that Laura and Gina and the technology department designed to move our district to a one-to-one school district, which we believe and will improve our children's access to their learning, and it will increase their skills and their achievement. This is getting us that closer to that. So it is, it will help move us forward on our one-to-one computer to child plan.
Okay, and I'm fully supportive of the one-to-one. I've been a big supporter of that from the first time that we brought it up as even a feasibility. I am not supportive of the governor's grant money or ESSER 3 money going for those computers. I believe we have capital monies that we could spend on that. We possibly have some M&O monies we could spend on that. I would like to continue to support that all of this funding, whether it's the governor's grant or ESSER 3 funding, goes specifically to learning loss, not to fund an initiative that we already had in place before we learned about the learning loss. In addition to that, I would like to talk a little bit about when I look at this plan and I see the plan for math aids and for additional math supports, as well as the supplemental math materials, they all list equal amounts by campus. And we know that our campuses are very different. They vary from the amount of population on the campus from around 500 students up to 1,000 students. They also vary in the scores that we've seen through AZM2 as well as our fall benchmarks. So can you tell me more about why we have determined to allocate the same amount to each campus, even when we know there are lots of differences on those campuses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right off the bat, when we looked at our initial data for our AZM2 from last year, we recognized district-wide, our data was significantly discrepant at each site. So if I give math third grade example, we were anywhere from a 23% to a 48% discrepancy from our year before in all of our sites. We realized right then that we had to do a universal tier 1 intervention across our district to get everyone what they need right now. From there, we also remember we can do as many addendums to this ESSER 3 money, and they actually kind of promote that because they want you to be responding to your data and make sure that you're tailoring the money specifically to where each site and school district is. So from there, we will be looking at our benchmark data across our school, which schools are not responding to this plan, which schools need more support, and we'll be able to do addendums to our ESSER 3 to increase the amount of support, whether that be additional staffing, additional money for supplementaries, or whatever that is. But we will be able to modify our ESSER 3 funds based on our current data to ensure schools are getting that extra layer of support. We have the ability to continue to do that because ESSER 3 does not need to be spent until September 30th, 2024. So we will be analyzing data. That EPT team that we talked about will be meeting together. We'll be analyzing data on an ongoing basis to determine if we need to move forward with making additional addendums to the grant application or submit the next application to make sure we're addressing that data.
Okay. I do not disagree that all campuses have a learning loss specifically in math, but I believe we already have the data to be able to differentiate the resources. So for example, if we are telling all of our principals that you are now having a math interventionist, is that the title?
Yes.
Okay, a math interventionist on their campus, are we prepared to
Math specialists.
math specialist?
Yeah.
Are we prepared to rearrange those employees and put them where they are needed most? Or we plan to hire additional employees on top of that? Historically, we are not a very agile organization. And so my fear is that we are going to set these in place equal by campus, and we will continue to have the learning loss differences that we are seeing today. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes. So one thing I can say is that we will have funding that we will be able to use. Now, probably not lots of additional math specialists, but we will have additional funding within that grant to shift funds to add to what each school needs. But from there, we can. I mean, this is a discussion we're having. This is an initial plan. If we feel if one of our schools close the discrepancy from 23 to 0, or they're higher than they were pre-COVID, then we can have that discussion and make sure and make sure our team, that EBT team, and our with Superintendent Gunning is leading us in ensuring that we are, once we recovered from our learning loss, where can we shift these funds? And so that will be a conversation that we'll need to continue to have, because these funds are specifically should be used for learning recovery. So once we recoup the loss, then we need to be diligent about ensuring that we shift funding and shift support to schools to help them recoup the loss as well.
Okay, so let me get some clarification on that. In the initial ESSER presentation that was presented last month, we said that our goal was to have every student at or above grade level by May 2023. So are you saying that once a school is back to where they were pre-COVID, they have to be weaned off of ESSER monies?
I'm not. I'm saying
Okay.
that's where our discussion can go. If we see one of our schools who has not responded in the way we thought, but another school is taking off, then we can begin those discussions. There's nothing set in stone for that, but I believe it's a discussion that our team needs to continue to have as we look at the data and analyze the data on an ongoing basis to ensure we are doing what was in the spirit of this ESSER's 3 money.
Okay, so this might get a little difficult here. When you say repeatedly in the presentation that we're looking at data and that we're making data-driven decisions, and I ask why we aren't looking at the data to determine the distribution of resources, and I am given pushback in 3 different ways, that makes me feel dismissed. And that makes me make up that what we have said as a governing board through the equity statement and through our actions to say we want 100% of these funds used for learning loss is not being heard and respected. And so I would ask you to reconsider the funding on an equal by campus basis and come back to us with something that is a data-driven decision on how these monies are being distributed, because we have the data and we can go ahead and do that now. We don't need to wait until spring benchmarks or the next AZM2. I want to see, for example, 3rd grade math at Barbara Roby, 19.4% versus Verado Heritage, 45% in 3rd grade. I already can see those schools need different things. I don't need another 6 months to be able to determine that. So I want us to be on top of this. I agree with Jeremy. We are in a dire situation here, and we need to start as we intend to proceed.
Okay.
Do you have any other feedback or anything else you'd like me to
No,
consider related to
We'll
that?
note that and go back and talk to the team to consider that.
Well, and I think the other piece is we just received our benchmark data to be able to dig in by school and by site. So that will be additional information to be able to look at. And like you mentioned before, our campuses are different sizes. So even though the scores may look, oh, this campus looks like it's doing great, they're a larger campus, so they still may be servicing the same number of children. So I think the number of children being serviced is also another piece to look at, because some
agree.
of the other schools are smaller. So they actually may be servicing the same amount. It may just be misleading if you're just looking at the proficiency rate.
I agree,
too.
but what I'm hearing being said is that we haven't gotten to that next level. We have said we have, for example, $1 million, and we'll be dividing that by the number of campuses that we have. So I would like us, even if we come to the same
Right.
number, I would like us to say, we have looked at that data and we have considered the differences in the campuses. And we are starting from this day forward to make decisions on distribution resources, on the distribution of resources based on those differences. Because we keep coming back to, in academics, and our teachers can customize things to our students, and every student is different. And in that same respect, every campus is different. And it's nothing personal to any campus. It needs to be looked at from a data perspective, not from a principal perspective or a teacher perspective. As far as the distribution of resources go, we need to step back and look at it from a high level and make sure that we're making those decisions based on the data that we have.
Yeah. And I think the hard part was the timing of having to submit the grants and the timing of our data coming in. So we only had the AZM 2, so trying to make a plan, but knowing that we could monitor and adjust it as needed based on current data and current timing. So I think that part is important too. And this is just an update, which we plan to do on a monthly basis so that the board is continuously updated on the plans, modifications, things that we've noticed, and recent data that has come in.
Which I appreciate. Thank you for the update.
So my question would be, since we have this plan, is this plan, we've spent all the money, this is how we plan to spend it all, or are we holding we're holding this money so that as changes come up, you said we may need more resources at another campus, we can do that?
Yep, that's an awesome question. So we put a lot of money in the tutoring so that we could adjust as needed. And amendments in to ensure that we utilize it in our data, our current data. So yes, we have money, a lot more money in tutoring, in the tutoring section that we do not feel we will use, that we will be able to use. But also, if we see that we do not need a math aid after next school year, we have that money set aside for 2 years for the math aid, 2 years for the math specialist. So if we see that needs have changed, we will then to use that money in a different way.
Okay, I have to say that I do agree with Kim that I don't want to see us using this money for laptops either. We have talked about this before. We already have a plan in place for technology, and I think we should stick with our plan for technology and utilize these funds to help our students with their learning as best we can. And one of the things I think that our district does sometimes is we're very slow to do things. And that's, I think, when you're saying we're waiting to find out about the money, and I totally understand money is really important. Obviously, we need it to fund all these things. We have to start moving right now to help our kids right now. They can't wait until we know for sure that we have the funding for all these special programs. So I'm hoping that we are starting to implement whatever we can now and not wait any longer.
Thank you, Bosa.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Megan, very much. We appreciate the presentation. Next, if you're following along on the agenda, is our public request to speak. I'm going to quickly read the disclaimer and then we will get started. Pursuant to ARS 38-431-01, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the open meeting law, Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431-01, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. As I've done in the past, I will call up each individual person, and I will also call the person on deck. So if you'll be ready to come up quickly right after, we will try to get to everyone this evening. Our first speaker will be Mrs. Cynthia Schwartz. On deck will be Mr. Michael Finnegan.
On December 8th, 2020, Danielle Clymer, Kim Moran, and Melissa Zudema voted yes on the equity statement. Following the vote, 6 open meeting law complaints were filed with the Attorney General's office. Now, 9 months later, the AG's office published 3 findings. I think it's important that the public know what the Attorney General said. Number 1, the board violated the open meeting law by taking a closed-door approach to the equity statement. From my perspective, the 3 of you cannot be trusted. You went off and formed a secret committee that created the TEW. It is only because Jeremy Honig found the document that parents and the public became aware of what you were doing. Shame on you. And thank you, Jeremy Honig. The infamous no true sign. The AG's office said not only were Ms. Moran's actions inappropriate, they were in violation of the open meeting law. Ms. Moran, you tried to silence parents and residents who disagreed with Ibram X. Kendi's ideology. Shame on you. What the AG's office found is that Jeremy Honig did not, and I repeat, did not violate any open meeting law by speaking out about student performance and the equity statement. I have witnessed time and time again the 3 of you trying to silence another board member. I have heard you yell at him. That's not on the agenda. Jeremy, that's not the unity statement. Jeremy, you can't talk about that. You do not want the public to hear what he has to say. Shame on you. How much money have you cost the district to spend on facilitators, consultants, and attorney fees to address your shenanigans? 10,000, 15,000, 20,000? Shame on you. You were not elected to push your own agendas, political ideology, or personal feelings. Do your job and focus on the students in LSED. And Kim Moran, no one wants to hear you recite your lyrics to your favorite song. No one wants to hear you tell stories about your family visits and then lecture us about how we should do the same. We don't care. In closing, thank you, Jeremy Honig, for exposing the TEW and speaking out about the low proficiency scores in the district. To the other 3 board members, you are a disappointment to the students in LSED, and shame on you.
Mr. Finnegan. On deck is Deborah Bohm.
I'd like to talk to the ESSER funding that was mentioned tonight. Funding of $7 million for the emergency relief, and the governor's office education plus up funds another $2 million. And in another 6 weeks, requesting an override from the general public for another $9.5 million for a total of $18 million. You guys are flush up to your ears in funding. I don't think money has been the bottleneck in improving math and language proficiency, nor do I think it will be the answer. Based on your current track record, you should probably be reducing your programs by $9 million and freeing up teacher time to teach academics. Talking towards this ESSER plan, can we see the plan that has been submitted for approval to the Arizona State Board of Education? Because I have a lot of questions about it. I'm surprised the board didn't have too many questions about it. What are the baseline scores that you're going to use to monitor and measure improvement? What are the timeframes for assessing and pre-assessment and post-assessment to monitor progress? How do you define success with using all this money? Pretty important question. It's not open-ended. Who set the goals? Who's on the planning team? What are your quantifiable goals? Your targeted strategy? Who is accountable for achieving these goals? We need accountability if we don't get the improvements from all this funding. Are you measuring growth or proficiency? What are you trying differently that will have the biggest expected impact? Teachers have the biggest impact on student achievement, not $18 million. Are they being tasked with achieving a targeted percentile improvement? And will accountability become a reality for the superintendent, the planning team, and the classroom teachers? The classroom teachers will have the biggest impact. They should be highly motivated now after their 29% salary increase. What incentives and requirements will you use to encourage parental involvement? We all know it's critical. Will you use signed parental contracts like you do in the traditional academy? Will you require parental signed homework, assuming students are given homework?
Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. Your time is up.
All right.
Mrs. Bohm. On deck is Molly Montanen.
I'm here tonight to say that I was actually pleased that there was some conversation that was not hostile amongst the board. That's a refreshing change. But what I am here tonight to say to you is that you are committing illegal behavior regarding quarantining of students. You are willfully denying students their rights for an appropriate education. You're practicing health discrimination, segregation, and intimidation by insisting on depriving children of their rights. You have usurped the decisions that are only in the purview of the Public Health Department. ARS 36788, Department or local health authority must initiate an investigation if that agency has reasonable cause to believe that a highly contagious or fatal disease exists within its jurisdiction. ARS 36789, the department may isolate or quarantine a person or a group of persons through a written directive without first obtaining a court order if any delay in the isolation or quarantine of that person would pose an immediate and serious threat to the public health. The petition must be accompanied by a sworn affidavit of the department or local health authority. In none of these do you hear the mention of a school district, a school board, a principal, or any other education agent making or initiating, segregating, quarantining, or mandating. You have far overreached your authority in so doing. If the health department has told you that you have the authority to do that, then they have delegated authority that does not belong to them to delegate. You are violating Arizona law in what you are doing. Each quarantine case, each one, must be initiated through the Public Health Department. This is not an authority that can be relegated to others. The health department must not tell you to decide. It is their job each and every time, and each one has to be a separate report. Please consider how you are breaking the law with your quarantine regulations.
Thank you. Molly, you are up next. And on deck,
Hi.
Avery Clayton, excuse me, just one second. Avery Clayton is on deck. Molly, go ahead. I apologize.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. I'm here to discuss dress code. As a girl, I feel that this dress code that is over 50 years old is
Can you speak
unfair.
closer
Okay.
to the mic?
As a girl, As a girl, I feel that this dress code that is over 50 years old is unfair, outdated, and sexist. The dress code tries to fit all different body types into one box. I come here today to discuss the dress code. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a dress code. I think it should just be more realistic for the 21st century. I feel that we need to sit down and think about what the stores are selling and what is fair for males and females. What seems reasonable for the state and weather we live in. If it's 100 degrees outside, we want to wear shorts appropriate for the summer weather. If it should be pointed out that girls are unfairly cited for dress code over boys. My education as a girl is just equally important as a boy's classmate. The dress code should be enforced fairly between genders. As a young female, I believe that there should be more conversation, accountability, responsibility, and focus on our own actions. I'm not responsible for what my classmates do. If I'm showing thigh, shoulder, or back is distracting for another student, that is for them to learn to control, not me. My body should be not continue to be sexualized by my school or their policies. My education is affected by this unfairly enforced rule. I am asked to leave the classroom until I am able to change. Now we have girls not getting equal education and class time. Please take a look at your current dress code rules. Ask yourself, what message are you sending? What are you teaching boys and girls at this school? Pay attention to how the dress code is being enforced by the school staff. Is it fair? Are you focusing on girls more than boys? Now ask yourself that. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. On deck, we have Katrina Hempelman.
Hello, my name is Avery Clayton, and I come here today to ask the school board to revisit the LESD school dress code. I have been an LESD student since kindergarten. I love the schools and the community that was provided throughout my years of being here. However, I feel that the school's dress code is sending the wrong messages to young girls like me. Dress code is outdated and is shaming girls of their bodies. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have dress code, because we definitely need some form of enforcement that is school appropriate. But I do believe that it needs to be more current with today's society, and that encourages women to be proud of their bodies. Nowadays, boys and girls' bodies are not necessarily taught as distracting or as objects. Boys and girls' clothing are very comparable in size of what they wear as far as shorts and tank tops. A tank top is not distracting for just females, it's both genders. I believe that as a young female that still has a lot to learn about life should be able to wear summertime shorts in the summertime without being told they are distracting. With all that being said, I hope we can change the school's dress code, and I thank you for taking your time to listen to what we have to say.
Thank you very much. Katrina, you are up next, and Taylor is just behind you. You can go in either order, it's fine.
Is that okay?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Thank you for letting a student voice be heard. Hello, everyone. I am Taylor Hempelman. I am an 8th grader at Litchfield Online School. Last week, I was wearing a spaghetti strap tank top to my virtual class. I was called into a separate meet to discuss my tank top. I was told to cover up. I didn't think it was necessary since I was in my own house, so I pushed back. I was threatened to go to the advisor and be kicked out of class, so I eventually did as asked. However, it felt so very wrong to me. I felt like I was being sexualized and that I was powerless. I have seen many guys not get dress coded for wearing tank tops, and many of my friends have had boys wear no shirt and still not get dress coded, while other girls are getting dress coded for wearing a tank top. This is a very sexist dress code, and many of us students believe you should let us have a seat at the table so we can help you change our educational system to better the learning of students all over. I would like to ask that students be invited to have a seat at the table when decisions are being made about our schools. I was at the last board meeting where I heard the adults in the room arguing about equity and what matters to students. How about you ask us? How about you invite us students and ask their opinions on important matters? How about you build a district of true equity where students' viewpoints are always included? Before making big decisions, I know that the district is reviewing the dress code and using an advisory board to help make those decisions. I ask that students be invited to be a part of that board so we have a say in these important decisions. In my situation, the principal dress coding for spaghetti straps on hold. I would like a seat at the table to make sure that no other girl is made to feel small, powerless, or sexualized by the policies of this district. I also want to make sure that no student misses educational time for things unimportant as showing shoulders in class. Thank you. I hope you will consider us students in the future as key stakeholders.
Thank you, Taylor. After Katrina on deck will be Kurt Neubauer.
All right, thank you guys all for being here on this board. I do want to just make a quick thank you to all of you. Being a member of a board like this is not an easy job. And given the level of social unrest that we have in society in general, you're in a hot seat. So thank you for being here. Thank you for staying strong, and thank you for doing your best to work together to ensure that our students are taken care of and that we're putting the things that matter most at the front of our agenda. I did also want to make a quick statement that I have a son in high school who's actually using that Edgenuity. If you have any questions about it from a parent view, I am happy to answer any of those. It's actually a really good program. It's very interactive, and I have found that it very much mirrors the academic experience and the flow and organization of what college online coursework looks like. So if you would like any insight into that from my view, I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Additionally, I wanted to say thank you all for voting for a mask mandate. We've seen some numbers shift here recently, especially in the number of students in quarantine. And I do feel that that is a direct result of having a mask mandate in place. And it's not a perfect mandate, but I do think that we've made some headway, and that needs to be acknowledged. So again, thank you for the work that you're doing. It's not all bad. I think that you get a lot of negativity coming at you, but I do thank you all for that. I wanted to echo my daughter's sentiments here on the dress code. I would very much like to see students included in a panel when you're making those decisions. And I would very much like to see those students be of diverse backgrounds. Our kids, especially our ones in our middle schools, they have a lot to say and they're very informed. You know, when I was in junior high, I had a lot of opinions. They weren't based on a whole lot. Our kids have access to information tools, to research items that we never had access to. They're not just informed, but they have the research to back it up. So I would very much like to encourage you to include them in that decision. And I have my own opinions on it, but ultimately it impacts them far more than it does me. And it's shaping how they see the world, how they see themselves in the world, and how they fit as leaders, which I know that we're building up here at this district. We're looking to create the leaders of tomorrow, and including their perspectives in a lot more ways, I think would be advantageous to us in developing a society that is more well-functioning than we are now. That was all that I had. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Neubauer. After Mr. Neubauer is Amy Pickett on deck, please.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to address the board. My comments are in regards to the equity statement, which has already been discussed a little bit. I've read through this and I'm scratching my head why we're going to expend limited resources, people's time, and I'm assuming funding as well to push this. This is almost a two-page document with a lot of words on it, but basically says nothing. We're trying to codify what's codified in the Bible as the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But instead, there's a lot of flowery language in here. And as I looked through this, I started scratching my head as far as the 4 strategic pillars that the district is wed to, looking at things like equitable access, culture, instruction, discipline, hiring, retaining people, training them, et cetera. If you guys aren't doing this already, people would pull their kids out of the school district. So saying that we're going to do this is like saying we're going to breathe. I think that efforts could be better spent, whether it's people's individual effort, funding, school resourcing, parents resourcing their time, et cetera, into focusing on fundamentals. Because the #1 objective for the district is student success. That's all that matters. That's the coin of the realm. All this other stuff is eyewash. In particular, and this is why I'm hot about this, I looked at the last section of this document, talks about definitions. The one that burns me the most, I'm a veteran. I spent 38 years of my life in the United States Air Force. This is communism with a happy face. And if you are going to take quotes from a man like Dr. Kendi, doctor, instead of a man like Dr. King, we got problems. This is not conducive to building the things that you say are so important to this district. Building community. Well, one of the things that's part of community is unity. And when you start defining and telling elementary school children that there are winners and losers by virtue of who they look like, we got problems. It's counterproductive. It's poison. It's anti-American. American is the only identity they need to have and that we need to have. This is communism with a happy face. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Amy, you are up. Caitlin Erickson is on deck. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My family and I are new to the district from out of state due to a job relocation. We have 2 kids that attend Verado Heritage. First off, I would like to thank all the teachers and staff at my children's school who give tireless effort and dedication to provide education to my kids during these times. When we chose where to live, my husband and I were excited to join this district. However, within the last few weeks, that has turned into concern. Not only am I disappointed in the lack of communication from the district, the capability of this governing board I have been questioning as well. To have students become aware of policy changes before parents and parents being notified less than 24 hours of new policy being implemented is unacceptable. This board's job to not be able to effectively lead this district is becoming more apparent. Just to name a few of the reasons I've come to this conclusion include this past summer, members being actively recalled, a member recently being reprimanded by the AG's office for breaking open meeting laws, telling parents one thing and then a week later changing it, and the lack of respect shown to Dr. Armstead for simply having ideas differing from your own. Last board meeting, I was shocked and saddened by her resignation, as I feel she would have positively impacted this district. When you held a special session allowing no public comment a week after making a decision, it felt sneaky and backhanded. Many parents, including myself, were unaware of this impromptu meeting. Making sure I was informed, I reached out to the superintendent's office and was told these meetings are posted in the same place as the calendar. From this, I can only gather I need to check it as often as possible to make sure there's no changes going forward. My suggestion would be to use as many tools at your fingertips, i.e. email, social pages, etc., so that parents may actually get notifications of a said change. Furthermore, what was the point of your decision? It's technically still optional, except all you did now is give already overworked teachers more work to be mass police and keep up with more forms. I don't care what side you're on, health decisions are a parent's choice, not yours. Now, because of your decision, teachers and staff are getting the brunt of upset parents when their wishes aren't being followed. And the mandate isn't lowering numbers. I personally know over a dozen families who refuse to sign the opt-out form and their children are still not wearing masks. How many do we not know about? The whole point is to keep these kids in school, right? As of 9/13, the AAP stated that even though cases have gone up 500,000 in children in the last 2 weeks, severe illness due to COVID is uncommon. Have you even thought or proposed other solutions? Many other schools across the country are using their ESSER funds to replace or upgrade their air filtration systems. According to the bylaws, B-7, the funds can be used for renovation, including making improvements to a facility to improve air quality, including filtering, purification, and other air cleaning systems. Now, I've gone over all of your ESSER proposals that I can find, and I can't see this anywhere. While I like that some has gone to learning loss, I don't understand the need for these particular funds to go to professional development for SEL and now self-paced learning. And when you're going to use it when there's no substitute, it makes me really uncomfortable, and that's really scary. You guys got to start listening and be open to other ideas if you want to have the respect from the community. I'm new, and I already feel not heard.
Thank you, Ms. Pickett. We appreciate it. Our last speaker this evening will be Sonia Burgess. I might be pronouncing that name incorrectly. I apologize.
Good evening, Superintendent Gunning, board members. I hope that stays. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And guests here this evening. My name is Dr. Sonia Burgess. So yes, you did pronounce it pretty close.
Good.
And I happen to be a resident here in Litchfield. I have grandchildren who have attended or are currently attending Litchfield School District schools. And so as you can imagine, I've met several teachers through several different functions and events that I've attended as grandma. And I just wanted to share a couple of different ideas and different observations, rather. I am someone who's been involved in education for over 15 years. And so I do know how difficult it is to juggle the different things, the responsibilities, as well as the expectations of family and community, and all of those struggles and things that are placed upon you. So I appreciate your time. Sometimes in that, though, some of the good stuff gets overlooked. And so I just wanted to take a second and share some of those good things that I hear and see are happening in our district. We all know that the time away from our physical classroom this last year really took a toll on learning. And you guys have discussed math scores and even English language arts scores. I know that our teachers are busy helping students, whether that's one-on-one or at small groups, table time. They even encourage our students to get together with other students for peer tutoring. These are all things that strengthen that connection between students, teachers, and their school community. One of the great tools that I've heard you guys are using are Kagan Structures. Kagan Structures, I'm very familiar with them. I've used them as a middle school, high school, and as a professor in higher education. And so I'm familiar with them. If anyone here is not familiar with them, they are great tools to reinforce learning objectives as well as build teamwork and social skills. Another way that our teachers and our schools are really supporting our students is through leadership opportunities, whether that is a leadership program that's a structured one, or individual leaders with our students in the classroom and across our campus. As was mentioned earlier, that helps us to build school spirit, and it helps our students and their families to really connect to Litchfield and what it is that's going on here. In addition to building student leaders, several schools have developed partnerships with Luke Air Force Base. There's a school that's writing notes to some senior citizens who are living in assisted living homes. And we've heard some great news tonight about our PTSA groups and how they're supporting our schools, our students, and their families. So some of this great stuff that I've mentioned is just a tiny snapshot into some of the great stuff that's going on here at our schools. And so for me, I just wanted to say thanks for all of the hard work and the efforts you guys are putting in.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, that concludes our public request to speak. Thank you for all that got up to the lectern and decided to speak to us this evening. We will move on with our agenda. Item 6A, our motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would like to move something from the consent agenda.
Okay,
Item 7BB, changing walk boundary.
can you repeat the 7, what was it?
7BB, changing the walk boundary.
BB as in boy, boy.
B, yeah.
Okay. Okay, are there any other items that we'd like to have removed? Jeremy?
Yeah, I would. I'm not sure. I think it was T.
Okay,
And it's conscious discipline, 37,000. I can't vote yes on that.
you said conscious discipline budget?
I don't know if it's in that. It's in one of the consent agenda items. For some reason, I can't see, there's no document listed here. Let me see. Oh, no, it's down and then I'm sorry, it's under number 7. We're on 6, right?
Yes, but 6 is to approve all of number 7. So that would be A through DD. So if any of those items you want to pull out and talk about separately.
Okay, yeah,
we
it
need to
is.
do that now.
It's number T.
Okay,
And it's it's under the fund 168. When I'm looking at the spreadsheet, it's about the 6th, 7th line down.
okay, so T and the supplementary contract wages for 21-22. That's the line
Yeah,
item?
168 title for $36,596.
Okay, we will address that specifically. Kim, did you have any items that you would like to remove?
No additional items.
Okay. Okay, then I will entertain a motion to, I will move that we approve the consent agenda item as presented minus line T, or excuse me, item T and item BB.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I will request of the board that we address item T first. And then because we have a secondary item on the school bus, that we do those both at the same time, just a couple down in the agenda. Any issues with that change? Okay, so we will discuss item T right now. We will move item BB down to do in conjunction with item 8F. Okay, Jeremy, the floor is yours to discuss item T from the consent agenda, supplementary contracts and wages for the 21-22 year.
I'm fine with everything other than Fund 168, Title IV, $36,600, something like that. For it's a stipend for conscious discipline, and I can't support that. I don't think it works. I don't think it's what kids need, the school wants, and I don't need to talk a lot about it. We're failing at academics, and we're essentially putting in what the other gentleman said is Marxism with a happy face.
Well, I believe those funds were already approved at our prior board meeting, correct? So it's not disapproval, since those funds, you can't disapprove it now that we've already approved it in a previous board meeting, Jeremy. This would only be approval for additional stipend amounts that have been expended since the prior board meeting report was approved.
Well, then what am I looking at here, this spreadsheet? Why is it on the agenda?
Maybe Wendy can explain that, or Superintendent Gunning could explain that in more detail to you.
Okay.
So this is not additional funds. This is the same funds last month. We already talked about this last month. This is not like 36,000 new dollars being spent.
Okay, well then I'll do Lily Tomlin. Never mind.
Okay, we still do need to approve this item, so I will entertain a motion on item T from the consent agenda.
I move to approve item T from the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. We will move on now to our action and discussion items that is found under the category 8 on our agenda. Remember, 7BB will be discussed later during this section. We will start now with the approval or discussion of approval of the instructional time model that we discussed earlier during the public hearing. Gina, did you have anything additional to add to that? No. Okay. I'll open the floor for discussion. This was the presentation that we discussed and answered questions on earlier.
I have one additional question for future consideration. The $300,000 cost of Edgenuity, is that the typical annual cost, or are we getting some sort of prorated cost since we're going into this, a month or two into the school year?
It's not for the remainder of the school year, it's for a full year from the date of purchase.
Okay, so when we're considering the effectiveness of this and potential adoption or continuation of this for the next school year, we can expect about $300,000 to be the cost.
Yes, around this time next year. yes.
Okay.
I didn't understand that either. That's actually good. Is this something that could be used during the summer school programming on every campus if we still had it available to us
Yes,
during the
and-
summer months?
So when we talk about all the opportunities that come along with this, that's a huge one too, is the
Okay.
summer opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I didn't understand that before.
So I
Um,
thought it was for this year. It's
It
going to
is.
go retroactive. Okay.
Well, the instructional time model would be retroactive, but the purchase of the contract with Edgenuity would go from the date of purchase for a year.
A calendar year,
A
not a school
calendar
year.
So it wouldn't be used at all this year.
It would be used as soon as we buy it. It could, I mean, if we can push it through this week, we would start immediately.
Okay.
And then it would carry into the next year. So this time next year, we would be discussing it again.
Thank you.
You're
Now I
welcome.
get it.
Sure.
Okay, I will entertain a motion on instructional time model.
I move to approve the instructional time model as presented.
Okay, I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Gina. Next on our list is item 8B, the second reading and adoption of the revision to policy advisory number 693, policy IC school year. And this is Mrs. DeCoste again.
Hello. So we reviewed this for the first reading at the last board meeting, and basically it's adding into policy, giving the board the authority to approve an instructional time model, different from what we have. So any questions or anybody need a refresher?
No, okay. I move that we approve the adoption of revision to the policy as stated.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 8C, the approval of the White Tanks Learning Center Phase 1 GMP.
Madam President, members
Hi
of the
there, Dan.
governing board. I'm here to present the guaranteed maximum price for Phase 1 of White Tanks Learning Center. It includes just the pre-engineered metal building and engineering services for that portion of the project. I do want to make sure you're aware, the project is moving forward by doing this. This moves forward with the pre-engineered metal building being designed and delivered approximately in February or March of next year. The second phase, GMP, will be presented around December. That would be the rest of the project, the building, the sites, the interiors, and the rest of the project. We do anticipate the project to being more than we were expecting as far as the construction costs. I think everyone is aware of where construction costs are going. It's really unprecedented. There's a lot of commercial building going on around the valley, and that's only increasing things. So by moving forward now, we're able to push the project forward. As soon as we get the building in place, we'll be ready to start the interiors right when it arrives. if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
So this is actually, the 733,000 is actually the pre-engineered metal building, but not set up, right? There's no foundation yet, right?
That's correct. It wouldn't include the foundations, the concrete, the cabinets.
So
any
this
other
would be
portion.
pretty much the building that could be on trucks.
That's correct.
Okay.
Dan, I know it's been, I don't know, a couple of months now since we've talked about this, and there has been some changes, one of those being cost, obviously, which we know that was going to happen. I believe the timeline is roughly the same, but if you could just review if there's any changes there. And also just walk through that there has been a change in the site location. Just in terms of full transparency, I don't know that we've actually had the full conversation in a board meeting. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about and where this is going to be.
Sure, excellent. When we first came about with the White Tanks Learning Center, we were going to place it directly next door to the existing services out there on Thomas Road, about 189th Avenue. Since then, with increasing construction costs, we started to look at different areas in which we could build the project in a cheaper fashion with still receiving all of the amenities that we want. We found that we do own a piece of property next to Corte Sierra Elementary School, directly to the northeast. That site offers many amenities that the existing site didn't, such as septic systems. There's electrical much closer. We have data directly next to the Corte that we'll be able to pull from. There's a driveway that's right there already installed. We don't have to come all the way off of Thomas, that 8th mile down the road. If you've ever been to White Tanks Learning Center, you understand all of these scenarios that we're presenting. By moving to Corte Sierra, we found significant savings by moving it there. So we are relocating to the Corte. Currently, we're planning to relocate to the Corte Sierra site. And the timeline still exists. We're looking for an August 2022 opening. At times we thought we'd be done around May or June, but still with that August 2022 goal. And I say that as a goal because there is significant construction delays out there for materials all over the place. So I'm still going to state that as a goal. I won't be able to firmly say it's August 2022.
Okay.
How many square feet is it again?
It has changed. The scope has changed quite a bit. So I don't have that exact number.
Roughly.
Well, we're looking at 6 classrooms, a cafeterium, offices, playground. Boy, I'd hate to even give you a rough.
Well, I was just thinking the building itself, the pre-engineered metal building.
Yeah, I think in the clarifications, they do give us some.
That's fine.
It's a 52 5/8 half-inch wide, 91 feet 9 1/4 inches long, 16-foot eave. The other building is 74 feet 10 inches by 114 feet with a 14-foot height. It's in the assumptions if you are to go further down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
on page 4. I'm sorry.
So when you say the costs have increased, can you give me a before and now a current projection? And then Wendy, can you verify that we do have funding available through our bonds, or we will have funds by the time the funds are needed? Okay, so we have adequate funding. And then Dan, can you tell me what those kind of before or picture was and what we think it is now? We won't hold you to this, but just to get an idea of the change.
Thank you. Construction costs across the country are about 30 to 40% up from about 2 years ago when we really started moving towards this. The budget for White Tanks Learning Center was developed in 2014. As you can imagine, it's quite a bit more than that. I'm really hesitant to give you a number because it's really based on scope, and that scope hasn't even really been fully initialized and gone through. So we really don't have a full estimate that I could give you at this moment. I know that's working around what you were looking for, but I do hesitate to give that number because we really don't know what it is.
Okay. how much bond money do we have available for this? That might be kind of a roundabout way to get to an answer. Okay.
You
Okay.
said 6 million between in different funds and different pots. And do you anticipate using the remainder of those funds?
I do not plan to use that full amount, no.
Okay.
Being fiscally responsible, keeping needs and wants in check, yes.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Any other questions? I just want to say thank you. I can't imagine trying to build or construct or even find a suitable location for something right now based on everything that is going on in our world and supply chain and everything else. So thank you for sticking with this. I think this is going to be an amazing resource for our students at White Tanks. And it's been long time coming for us to build a facility that is, you know, a better house for them to learn in and a better learning environment. Superintendent Getting, just very, very quickly, can you elaborate briefly on how we will be able to utilize the current White Tanks facility for, you know, additional training or rooms that we can then use moving forward, so we still will get full use out of the building that we have now?
Correct. What we'll do is we'll look at different opportunities of what we could maximize the use of those rooms for. And it could be multiple things. It could be moving something else there to be in that place or be housed at that location, and or utilize it for additional, like you said, training sites, because we're always looking for additional training rooms and those types of pieces. So once we get closer, then we'll just sit down and analyze how we'll maximize the use, but it will be used because we definitely always are needing space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having a sort of a secondary building or location, we haven't really had that available to us as we're luckily, we are a growing district and we are outgrowing and outpacing ourselves in terms of classroom and training space. So thank you very much, Dan, for the information. We appreciate it. And I will entertain a motion for the White Tanks Learning Center Phase 1.
I move to approve the White Tanks Learning Center Phase 1 GMP as presented.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 8D, approval of new job description, COVID clerk position for the 21-22 school year only.
I will jump in on that because I think Mrs. Sanders had to leave.
Okay.
This is a COVID clerk to help assist us during this time of the continuation of the pandemic, to assist with our school nurses who already have a lot on their plates with just typical healthcare, but to be able to help with contact tracing and all of the notifications that need to take place. And it's slotted for just this school year, and then we'll assess where we're at in the pandemic for any future adjustments.
I make a motion to approve that.
Okay. I will second that. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had something to say. Okay. All those in favor of the approval of the new job description COVID clerk position? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 8E, the approval of the new job description Human Resources Generalist. Superintendent Gunning?
Yes. So we are asking for you to approve the addition of a staff member, an HR generalist to our Human Resources Department, as we've continued to grow in staff and have not grown that department in many years. This position will be a generalist, so we'll be able to help out in multiple realms, primarily focusing on the assistance with employee relations issues with any principals, supervisors, directors, as well as helping to support recruitment efforts. And also doing more data analysis in relation to exit interviews and onboarding and those types of things, so that we can really collect the data so that we can maximize the effectiveness of all of the strategies that we're using in our Human Resources Department.
Okay, thank you, Jody. I'd like to make a statement and kind of just give you a chance to respond to it. That I know that for those of you following along on the consent agenda, I know there were many items, but there were a few changes in some positions and kind of growing some departments and making some additional room for growth in the future. We are, quite clearly busting at the seams with children and families that are moving into our community, which is amazing. It is increasing our employee workload and things like that. So can you give us kind of a brief understanding of, we have typically been, in my opinion, extremely fiscally responsible and trying to run as lean as we can at the district level, at the administrative cost across our district during times of COVID and myriad of different things probably that we could go through in the last year or so. We have seen that there have been some holes that we need to fill desperately in order to increase our ability to make progress across the district. So will you just kind of address sort of the overall changes that are going on in human resources right now and why we need those additional positions?
So one of the things that we had noticed, especially in this drastic time of growth that we've seen in our district, is that we are now up to just about 1,300 employees in 17 locations. So if you think about if there's just one employee relation issue at each of those campuses, that's 17 that are flowing into the director of HR. And then anything that is a higher level or higher level issue, her only person to consult with is me and or the attorney. So just thinking about the time that takes and the efficiency and the effectiveness of that department, which also then increases your liability, because if you're not turning things around in a timely manner, and or if you're having to handle such a volume, which I know it might sound like a volume when you think of 17 issues at once, but details could be missed and liability could increase. So it was time to really look at those pieces. The other piece is that we had never have been as proactive as I would like to be in the recruitment realm. We are limited in staff, so it would be maybe 1 or 2 job fairs that we were able to actually physically staff to go to. This will also help us to grow in that arena, as well as to be proactive from an HR director standpoint, to be able to do additional professional training for our leaders so that they have the skills in order to solve and resolve any issues that are happening on their campus. Because right now it's more of a reactionary, here's the issue, what do I do? Where this way it will give them the tools and their tool belt so that they feel very confident in responding to any issues or concerns on their campus.
Is this person going to help us get bus drivers?
That is definitely on the list.
I move to approve this.
I actually would like to make a comment first. Can I do that?
Go ahead. You can make a comment.
I just want to thank you, Jody, for your leadership in this area. As Danielle said, we historically have run very lean when it comes to district administration. And I hope that you will continue to examine the needs and examine where we could utilize positions, whether that's in the classified piece of the administrative district, or all the way up to the director and executive director level, to make sure that we can continue to run in an efficient way, but in a really impactful way. And so things have changed, and I'm glad that you're acknowledging that. I think this is hopefully the first of many changes that we'll see.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve job description, human resources generalist.
I second.
Great, thank you both. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to insert our item from our consent agenda, item 7BB, into the agenda at this point. We're going to talk both about the walk boundary changes and the approval of the transportation retention and recruitment incentive. So let's start first with the approval of change to walk boundary from 1 to 2 miles. The second reading and adoption of those revisions to our policy EEAA. I believe we have Mr. White from our transportation department coming up to discuss both of these issues.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Gunning. Once again, I stand before you to put forward the motion to extend the district's walk boundary from 1 mile to 2. As I discussed before, for efficiency, I'm considering our staffing levels, which are quite low at the moment, which we're trying to, boost. I think this is the best option going forward for the future at this time. And I really think it will produce benefits, efficiency in student instructional time, because buses are kind of running late at the moment, and we need to address that immediately. Because we're in the business of getting children to school on time so they receive an education. And when they're running late, they are somewhat slacking in that area.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open the floor for comments or discussion on the change in this policy.
Okay, this agenda item has been weighing on me the most of any of our things because I live in an area where our middle schoolers would have to cross Dysart and Dysart and Indian School to get to school. And thinking about kids walking across those major streets is very difficult for me to want to approve, and I understand where we are. So this is a plea to our whole community that if you have ever been interested in driving a bus, come see us, we need you. But it's just been weighing on me because that's just very difficult for me to understand how we're going to tell these kids they have to do it. And I want to know if last time you had talked about how we had to condense, not have so many stops. So have we already gone through and made those changes where we have less stops? Did we already try that this year before we're bringing this forward?
Right, we're in the process of planning that at this moment in time. But to answer your question, where you mentioned about students crossing dangerous roads, we're not going to have students crossing dangerous roads. We're going to still keep those bus stops in place, because you can't have students crossing roads which are very, very dangerous. Those are danger zones. So we still intend to have those particular bus stops in place. They're not going anywhere.
Okay, so if this gets approved tonight, when is this going to go into effect?
You mean the actual?
Yes, when will students no longer have bus service if they're less than 2 miles from the school?
Oh, that's going to take a couple of weeks. It's not going to happen just straight away, because it needs planning and refine. There's letters that need to go out. They need to have notice. It's not going to happen tomorrow. So for instance, it's going to take some weeks.
Okay. Well, that was my next question. How much notice did families get? But you have covered that. So yeah, that again, community, we need bus drivers. None of us like this discussion up here and want us to be doing this. So we need bus drivers. Please send people our way.
Have we heard of any additional creative ways to market or recruit additional bus drivers?
There's all options have been put on the table, and we've practically tried everything. But at this moment in time, not only our school district, but neighboring school districts and school districts all over the country are going through the same tribulations and trials. Attracting at this time is very, very difficult, extremely difficult. I've never seen it like this before, and it's something which is new.
Yeah.
And we're just having to deal with at this time.
So if somebody already has their commercial driver's license, how long does it take them to then be up and running as a bus driver?
For instance, if you have a commercial license, depending on what type of license you have, say you just have a transit bus license, you need to get the school bus certification. Now that's going to take, maybe 4 to 6 weeks of additional training.
Okay.
It's a long process. It's not something that just takes a week.
Okay.
I think it's more appropriate under item F, 8F, which is approval of transportation retention, recruitment, incentive.
Happy to continue the discussion then if you prefer.
I would just like to say more a comment than a question. I think everyone has felt the pain of this, both from the district side as well as our parents and our community. And we have received some emails and information from constituents and parents that obviously are very upset about what is happening. I just wanted to directly address that. And we'll talk about incentives in the next agenda item, but we are turning over every rock, every stone. We are working, whether it is money or time or resources that we can provide to people to get them to come and work here. We are doing all of those things. This is a very specialized position that you can't just walk in and start driving a bus. And there's obviously very good reason for that. So while we are trying to work for, anyone in the district that can drive a bus is driving a bus right now, multiple buses a day. And so we're working as hard as we possibly can to offer the privilege of transportation to school. It is, outside of children on an IEP or special education, it is not mandated in this state that school districts have to provide transportation. We have always been extremely lucky and privileged to be able to provide transportation to anyone over that mile boundary. It is my hope and desire that we will get back to that as soon as possible. I know this school year it's going to be very difficult. So my comment is just to those in the community that are frustrated by this. We are too. To the people that are upset and angry that this is happening, we are too. We are in a situation that we don't have a lot of options right now, and we are working very hard to find some creative solutions. So I would ask for your patience and support right now while we try to work things out, and we will throw every resource and support that we can at this until we can get the situation figured out.
I have one more comment too. One of the things that will become more difficult with doing this is that there's going to definitely be more parents at the drop off. So I highly encourage our families to work together, work with your parent groups, however you need to work out some carpool situations so that we can limit the cars that are going to our campus. That will be safer for the students. That will be better overall for everyone. So that's another way that the community can help, is by working together to come up with carpool plans so that we don't have so many cars going to the school to drop off and pick up in the afternoons.
Absolutely. And the principals that are here in this room, as well as the others that are maybe listening at home, we will preemptively wish you well for the new driving status on your campuses, because it is difficult on a good day. So, we all need to work together and support each other in getting our kids to and from school safely every single day. So with that, I will move that we approve the change of the walk boundary from 1 to 2 miles and adopt the revisions to our policy EEAA as presented.
Can I add one more comment before we vote?
Please.
Just for the interest of anyone who isn't actually reading the information that was published on the agenda, that if we vote to put this change in place, that we will do our best based on the number of drivers that we have to service more than just those students. We will then look at the 1.5 to 1.99 mile range and add those back as much as possible. And that we will get back to the normal walk zone as soon as we are fully staffed, or as quickly as we can along this process. So we're hoping this is going to be a short-term solution to this problem.
Thank you. Motion was on the table. Jeremy, did I hear you second?
Yes.
Okay,
second.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 8F, approval of 2022 transportation retention and recruitment incentives for transporters and student monitors. Hi, Megan.
Hello again. So extending that conversation that we were just having, we are desperately in need of student transporters right now. So we looked around at different districts. We figured out what a way we can incentivize, recruit, retain, and incentivize increased attendance rates. And what we came up with, you have as our recommendation, as all transportation staff with the CDL and for all hours driving students will receive an additional $2 an hour driving incentive to be paid from October 1st through May 20th At that time, we will look at our funds, look at our need, and determine what we need to do from there. It'll also increase our monitors $1 an extra an hour while they're working, because we're in desperate need of monitors for our special needs routing, because our children need that support. So we are asking tonight that you all approve this because of all the things we just spoke about in the last presentation.
Okay. I just want to start really quickly. I think we'll have some comments, but I wanted to offer one concern is not the right word, but just a suggestion maybe. If we are paying the workers $2, $1 respectively for their different positions, I am all for increasing those wages and incentivizing them. My suggestion would be, is it possible to offer more of a retention bonus in the sense that we pay half of them in their hourly, and then we use the other half of that money at the end of the first semester in December as a sort of a bonus check, so to speak, and then again in May to really increase that retention all the way through the end of the school year. So you increase the hourly and same amount of money, you're just splitting it into two pots. That way we get them money immediately in their pocket on their paycheck, but also give them a bonus for staying throughout the rest of the school year.
We reviewed different options. This is the one we felt was the best, but if you're recommending we go back to reconsider, then we can do that. We looked at incentive, we looked at sign-on bonuses, we looked at if you stay now till November, you get this amount of money.
Okay.
And we modeled this after Gilbert actually, because we really felt this met our needs. But if you would like us to go back to relook at this.
No. Thank you for saying that. Let's let the board weigh in and then we'll see what happens.
And it's a great reminder that we have the $500 retention bonus that will be coming in December for all employees.
Including student transporters.
Yes, every employee.
Okay, so we're talking $2, $1 an hour respectively, plus $500 in December for all employees.
Yes.
And when do they need to be employed by? To earn December bonus? Okay, so that's a retention for our previous transporters. Okay. Prorated for that 500, but an additional bonus, as I was just referring to. Okay, great.
I think these guys thought it out pretty well, so I'm going to move that we approve this.
I would not disagree with that. I think knowing that the $500 or prorated 320, whatever that number ends up being, number is coming to them in December, we still, I think, would have opportunity, even if we leave what was presented with the $2 and the $1, to potentially use, like we're talking, reshuffle some of the funds that we're using for this, if we see there's still a need, and if we need to put another specific student transporter or student aid, transportation aid incentive to get us through the rest of the school year. Based on the number of people we have in that department, it seems like that would probably be feasible as well.
Makes sense.
Does that sound feasible, potentially?
We definitely can talk through that for sure to see if that's our need. Then.
Yeah, absolutely. Nope, I think that's a great compromise. Melissa, did you have any comments or feedback? No. Okay, there is a motion on the table to approve transportation, retention, and recruitment incentive for student transporters and student monitors.
I second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I keep doing this, but I do have a couple of things I'd like to just discuss related to this that I was beginning to discuss in the previous segment of the agenda. A couple of ideas that one came in an email to all of us earlier today, and then there was another idea that was presented to me in regards to recruitment or utilization. President Clymer, earlier you made the statement that everyone in the district that is capable of driving a bus is driving a bus, and I do know that is true for the transportation department. Have we asked if we have any other staff in facilities or anything that might also be credentialed with a CDL or want to take on some extra routes for some stipends or anything like that? I don't know if we've ever thought about something.
I do not know that. Dan's head's down.
And you don't have to have an answer to that right now, but I just think
it's something that we definitely could look into because it's a good point. I know that when we had to do the cancellation of bus route 76, it was horrible for all of us to talk about, but every principal was like, should I get my CDL? Should I get my CDL? Well, we know that that's not feasible because they have a job to do to run the school, but maybe there is some employees that aren't working full-time or something that we could look into. So it is definitely something that we could talk through and look into that.
Yeah, just put an all hands on deck call out. The second piece would be, have we thought about or discussed doing any specific recruiting, like in Pebble Creek or Sun City, to say, are there retired bus drivers out there who would like to come out of retirement for 9 months because we are in a dire straight situation? Reference all the news articles and all that's coming out about that. Again, I don't think we've done that, but just something to consider with that.
That is a great idea, and we could possibly advertise. Nathan is doing a student transporter job fair in October, so that might be a good way for us to target some of those audiences to market that event.
Okay, fantastic.
One thing to that point about sort of cross-utilizing people from other departments that might be able to do that, if, like you said, if they're not working full-time or they have extra hours or whatever, I think it could also be an incentive that you keep on the table or in your back pocket if we need to incentivize them to help them pay for their licensure and all of that. That might be an option, another way that we can incentivize folks if they're willing to. I know we've had to do that in the past. So lots of ideas available. I think there's a motion on the table now, so I will continue. Motion and a second to approve the incentives as presented this evening. Hopefully we'll continue to research any incentive we can find to do that. So I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Nathan. Good luck. And please keep us posted on if our transportation situation gets better. Last item in the section 8, approval of revised job description and title change from ELL instructional coach to director of English language development and salary placement chart, and appointment to position for Jennifer Larson from ELL instructional coach to the director of English language development. Oh, Tina, hi there. I'm sorry, I thought it was just going to be superintendent. No, you're fine. I just looked her way. I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm just here to answer questions.
Oh, okay.
I think you have all the information.
Okay, yeah, so I wanted to have a discussion just related to this to find out more about what is actually happening in our ELL right now. I know we've seen some position changes and additions and funding changes in the last few years. And so I wanted to use this as an opportunity to educate myself and everyone else as to where we are with that and what might be behind the need for this particular job change.
Okay, so there are a couple things. One is that the service models for EL students have changed over the last couple of years. With full implementation was supposed to be last year, but with COVID, it was a little bit delayed. So we didn't do everything that we could have been doing. We were servicing them online. So this year, with our EL data and our student growth being low in that population, and the service time model requires that you serve the students with a certified teacher, where before we had a model with certified teachers and classified assistants. So we put this model into effect with fidelity, as the state is recommending that we do, and we have an EL coordinator at every site, and then a couple of our sites that have lower numbers of EL students then also service EL students in the Digital Learning Academy. And so with the expansion of that 15 EL coordinators across the district, somewhat comparable to what you would have in special education with a resource teacher, they're pulling small groups for a required number of minutes per day. And Jen Larson has been our EL coordinator at the district level for years and running all the programs helping at every school, helping support the principals and the aides. And now she'll be supervising, or has been supervising, those EL coordinators. And the funding for the EL program comes from a couple of different sources. I cited in here Title III, and then we have an SEI grant. But over the years, the SEI grant has been very little money. 2 years ago,
Jen, they said there was going to be more money, so Jen Larson, rewrote the grant, and we did get more money to fund more positions out of that. And then also EL students are weighted heavier than just a general education student, so.
Okay, and it states in here that this is a modification of job duties. So I just want to clarify that this is again, modification and not a new position. We are not expected to appoint someone into a new position. This is a modification of an existing position.
It is, because she'll be doing a lot of the same duties that she has been doing for us. And then in addition, a few other things, which would be supervising. Now, the principals will observe and evaluate, just like they do other teachers on their campuses, but she'll be supervising and providing PD for the EL coordinators, which she's always done, and also PD for general ed teachers who have students with English language learners in their classroom. Let's say one other thing. And she'll take over the grants. That's kind of what changes Brian Owen's position then, is Jen will do the Title III grant and she'll do the SEI grant.
So it seems to me that this change is really just because the job description needs to be updated because of overall needs. Is that sort of correct?
That's very correct. Updated and upgraded because of the supervision of the new positions
Yeah.
that came out of the programming.
So I make a motion to approve this.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I had a momentary lapse there. Any other comments, questions? Okay, there's a motion to approve on the floor.
I will second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gina. We appreciate it. Moving on to item 9A, discussion on school year calendar for the 22-23 school year.
Gina just lives up here today.
It's past my bedtime. Okay, so this year, the superintendents collaborated. We typically, as you know, follow Agua-Fria's calendar as much as possible because we have a lot. It's easier for our families, and we've done that for years. The superintendents collaborated on this calendar, and we got feedback from our career development committee and from superintendents advisory committees, classified and certified, when we met with them. And really the big question on this calendar is winter break, because Christmas is on a Sunday, and so it really leads right up to the holiday. Agua-Fria had 2 early release days on their calendar, possibly 3 actually. When we shared that out with our teachers, they thought the feedback was overwhelmingly like, yes, we're good with 2 early release days before the break, and then coming right back after the new year, instead of a couple of options would be like go to like a Wednesday to Wednesday, the 21st to, right after January or something like that. So this is the calendar that we would like you guys to take a look at and give us any feedback on if you can. But like I said, it's very similar to what we've done in the past, and the same with early release days. Same amount of professional development for teachers that we've had in the past. Even though at some point in the future, we'd like to get more, we know this isn't the time for that.
Okay, thank you. I have just 2 questions, or a question and a suggestion maybe. It seems like we're starting, and I know this is 2 years from now, so the calendar is going to be a little different, but it seems like we're starting later in the month of August instead of starting that first week. Is there a reason why we're pushing that back?
It just kind of fell that way. We haven't, the latest I think we've started in the last few years has been August 6th. But it just, and I think everybody's happy that it kind of fell a little bit later in August. But when you kind of go, typically we try to be out before Memorial Day. So if you go backwards from that, we're out before Memorial Day, and then filling everything in between and trying to make sure that each quarter has close to 50 days.
We've started on the 8th before, because that's my birthday, and my kids have started on my birthday before, so I know what's happened.
Secondly, as you were just talking about with the winter break and having to, I'm not sure that I completely understand the thought process. Maybe you can just explain it to me again, and having the 2 half days. If the thought process was that students and or teachers would be potentially taking off some of those days prior to the holiday because it is so close, why would we not maybe potentially have a full day on Friday that's teacher in service instead of 2 half days? Go to school fully on Thursday, have the full, day, or what you just mentioned in not going to school at all Thursday and Friday. I guess I just hate the idea of we're planning for students to be absent, so we're going to do a half day because either let's just give them the whole day off, or let's plan a different scenario because, I don't, what I mean? I don't want just to plan a half day so that people
to think about is that they would still receive lunch on that day, so it counts as a day of attendance.
They get breakfast and lunch. It counts for a day of attendance. The teachers were partial to that being a full week. They really don't like their weeks broken up or having like a half a week or 2 days off at the end. But also, it'll be a smaller group of people, I think, traveling on those 2 days. The majority of our students will not be leaving because we pushed up until Christmas before. And I remember that being a big concern. And it's probably been 4 years ago. I'd have to look back and see, thinking, oh my gosh, attendance is going to be terrible. And it really wasn't. Like, kids come right up until they save all the fun stuff. But it's that cushion of people will travel, but they'll only miss a half a day. Or if teachers travel, we're only talking about a sub for a half a day.
So why would we not then just have the 1 half day on Friday and have the other half day the 9th or whatever, like we do every other month, and have them every other day? Why would we have a half day on Thursday?
To line up with Agua Fria, because that they are doing the 2 days at minimum, right? Was it 2 or 3? But to line up with them, just because if their kids are going to be having their early releases, then the younger kids would also.
Okay. I'm not necessarily in favor of that specifically just because of that reason, but anyway, any other comments?
Well, it's a convenience for our families, and we don't have to do that, but
I think it's more convenient the other way when our students have a half day and they do not, because of, some of those older students maybe help with transportation or, watching their siblings or something like that. I'm not sure that I understand what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, I think that I just don't necessarily understand the need for the Thursday. So, but that's
I don't think
just
there's a
my
perfect
opinion.
scenario.
Yeah. Any other comments or feedback? And what are the next steps on this? We'll see this now, and then this comes back to us at some point in time
October 12th, it'll come back for approval.
for the next regular board meeting. Okay. Okay. Seems like we are out of comments and questions. Thank you, Gina. Appreciate it. Moving on to 9B, discussion on student dress code. That is with Superintendent Gunning.
Madam President, members of the governing board, I just wanted to provide an update to the board in regards to where we are with dress code. Student dress code is definitely an area that we wanted to consider, and getting lots of feedback from not only community members, but our students was really important and imperative that we move forward with this process in a more timely fashion. The goal is definitely to make sure that we're maximizing the time in the classroom and limits those unintended barriers that we have. I asked the principals to obtain feedback from staff, students, and families, and as well as I will be putting together a district level committee that will probably come together either at the end of October or beginning of November to take into account all of the information that's received from each of the sites, each of the school sites, from those groups, as well as look at and review other district guidelines in relation to dress code across different places and spaces, not just in the state of Arizona, and also review the current options and opportunities that families have at local stores here readily available, to see like whatever we do have in dress code, is it something that they can actually go out to their local Target, Walmart, JCPenney's, any of those locations and actually find the clothes that they're looking at. The goal is that we would come back and give you updates to what we would recommend in the December board meeting for then immediate implementation, the goal would be that we could implement it January 1. And of course, we'd update you if there's any changes in that timeline.
Superintendent Gunning, based on the feedback that we received tonight, what is your plan to have student involvement in this process?
So student involvement will be in the school site level as well as at the district level committee. So one of the great things from, I think, COVID is that our opportunity to utilize like Google Hangouts or Google Meets for meeting opportunities. So that could open up the opportunity for a school representative to represent their campus in providing feedback.
Thank you.
I'm really happy to see that this is being addressed by the administration. I mean, not only because we have, folks that are coming and talking to us. I think there's just a lot of things that we could be doing better in this area. So I'm happy to see that. I want to be really clear in my sort of understanding of some of the problems with the dress code as you're moving forward and collecting that feedback. Not only I think is it difficult for some students to maybe find what we would consider appropriate clothing or what is described in the student handbook, and for many other reasons. I think one very important issue that our students that were here tonight didn't talk about, but I think we need to address specifically is consistency across our campuses. The policy is the same regardless of what campus you go to. And I think it has become obvious over some time that it's just not being evaluated in the same way. It's not being administered in the same way. So as part of, kind of the feedback loop and all of that, I think one thing that needs to be addressed at the district level is how are we going to consistently administer this and make it very clear to our principals, teachers, and our staff that are, sort of the frontline people in dealing with dress code issues and violations, and make it fair for everybody, no matter what campus they go to. I can completely understand how students would be frustrated when, they attend one campus and they're treated differently than at another campus. So I know that is one of our overall goals this year, is to try and make that more consistent. So I think this is one really good opportunity for us to do that. With that said, for the students that were here this evening, for parents that are here this evening, and anyone else that might be listening, how would they be a part of that process at the campus level for principals if they're interested in being involved? How is that going to be communicated to them, and how do they sort of raise their hand to their principal?
So to their principal, I would encourage them to go ahead and email their principal if they're interested. I know the principals are going to work on developing their site councils. So at some of them that are very comfortable with the site council, and that process has been in place. It might have been on hold last year during COVID. The site council might move a little faster. Other principals that are still in the process of creating that, because we don't want to hold up the feedback on dress code, might form a parent committee or utilize their PTA in feedback of that process as well. But I would encourage folks to email their principal and show their interest. I have a list ongoing already of parents who've reached out to me so that I can make sure that when it's time to do the process for the district level one, that I can make sure that those parents are communicated with. I mean, we'll communicate with all in the process, but to make sure, double check that those folks that are highly interested have the information of the process.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one thing that we have learned over the last several months, if not a year, is, people are not constantly checking our LASD website as much as I wish that they would. Lots of great information there. They're not doing that. So I do believe it is incumbent on us to be proactive to people to say, hey, we're doing this. Hey, if you're interested, do this. I know a lot of people do watch these meetings. There's a lot of people that don't have access or don't maybe care to sit here with us for several hours. So I do want to make sure that principals are communicating to everyone on their campus to make sure that we get that parent involvement. Not just the people that are going to email directly. I think that has to be an open and fair process to get a well-rounded look at everyone on that campus that might be willing and interested in participating.
I would agree with you, Danielle. Like, I think that while talking to the PTAs and PTOs is good, not everybody is involved with that. So that's not really, I think, the best way to get feedback from your whole campus. So I would say trying to reach out through an email campus wide or things like that. Maybe a survey to students as another way to reach out to them would be a good way to get feedback.
Absolutely. So just to reiterate the timing, we'll review the findings and the recommendations to any revisions to the student handbook, which would be the dress code. Is it your understanding? I have reviewed our actual district policy at the policy level and haven't seen any need or any revisions there. So just want to make sure we're just discussing the specifics in the student handbook at this time.
Correct.
Okay.
The policy is generic.
Right,
itself.
is general. So December board meeting review and or potential adoption or whatever is necessary at that time, implement on January 1. What is happening in the interim between now and December?
So you mean what's happening in between now and December? Now in December is the school sites getting their feedback from students, staff, and parents, and then submitting it to me when we create the district level committee. That would then come together in November. I'm thinking it could be 1 to 2 meetings, just depending on how quickly we go through the information of reviewing policies in other districts, and reviewing the feedback that was submitted from all the campuses, coming to a consensus to put forth recommendations.
I apologize. Thank you for answering my question. That wasn't exactly what I was asking, but that was my fault. What is happening on campuses between now and December? Are we asking students to abide by the current dress code? We're sort of status quo in the meantime while we are trying to amend this process.
Currently, what I ask principals is to address issues that are egregious.
Okay. So an interim solution until December. Okay.
I just have a comment. It seemed really disturbing that some students said they were basically removed from the class, or they just had to, go pound sand somewhere in a room or whatever. And I just don't, is there a possibility that there could be like a smock or something that, if somebody felt they were too revealing or something, they just had to put on a shirt or a lightweight smock, or I don't know what.
We already.
Yeah, that instead of them being really removed,
They usually have some extra clothes in the school office, whether they're PE uniforms or something like that, that they are given the option of putting those on. That's not a great solution. That's not what my solution would be, but there are usually options available on campus.
Thank you. Okay, well, it's good.
Okay. Any other comments or information for Jody? Thank you very much for the update.
I'm sorry, I do have
I
one
look
more
forward to
comment. I'm like so bad on my timing tonight. Superintendent Gunning, could you please just include in 1 or 2 Friday updates between now and December where you're at with the status, and maybe even give us the opportunity for some feedback on the revised dress code in the student handbook?
Great, thank you. I know there's a lot of people looking forward to what happens from this. So this will be an exciting change that hasn't happened in a while. So looking forward to it. Thank you. Okay, we are going to wrap up with our reports, and we will keep it with Superintendent Gunning for her report this month, excuse me.
Madam President, members of the governing board, I have lots to update you on. First, I wanted to share that Shelley Hornback and the president of our Heritage Heroes PTSA were featured as panelists at the most recent quarterly ASPRA meeting. This is where the communications directors from all over the state meet for professional development, and their presentation was centered on parent engagement, which is something our district is known for doing particularly well. Also want to give a special thanks, and I think she's gone already, to Denise Lundberg for stepping in the leadership role to support our Litchfield Elementary School Owls. Special thanks to Storm students from Valen Soto for helping one of the Rotarians from Goodyear, Pebble Creek, celebrate his 90th birthday. They brought the room to tears, and it was great to see that celebration. Congratulations again to Laura Combs and Jamie Schmedeke for the Iste certification, and of course to our Scott Libby PTA for their A+ PTA of excellence. I want to thank Danielle and Kim for attending the ASBA Law Conference. I didn't know there were so many different pieces and so much to learn, and I'm still digging through my notes each and every day, but thank you so much for taking that time. Also, Superintendent Watson recognized School Leaders of the Month this school year. We have Principal Janke, Principal Garrett, Principal Capristo, and Principal Rodiger. And this recognition is amazing because it's their peers that turn them in and feedback from their staff of how they get recognized. So that's a great thing. We are in the process of, really honing down our school site councils and going through that process. Principals will be receiving training and we'll walk them through step by step. Some of them are newer principals, so they didn't necessarily have a site council because they started right before COVID. And then some of them are more experienced, so they're kind of taking the lead to walk through that process. So we're in the process of that. District staffing, as you know, we're in dire need of student transporters, also food services employees, also instructional aides and one-on-one aides. So if you know anyone who is interested, please have them reach out because we are in dire need, especially in those areas. Updating on quarantine and isolation since the implementation of the masks. We just this last Friday, we had 160 total in the district that were either isolated or quarantined. That is down from August 13th, which was 566, and August 20th, which was 405. I appreciate everyone who is masking up and being able to utilize that protocol so that we can limit the number of quarantines. And I think that's it. All I have.
Great, thank you very much. We will start with our report from governing board members. Jeremy, would you like to start us off?
No report.
Okay. Kim?
Sure, I'd like to start with a reminder that we have an override coming up on the ballot. I encourage everyone to vote. The deadline to register to vote is October 4th and this is an all-mail election and ballots will be mailed out October 6th. Return those ballots as soon as you can. Secondly, this month, as Superintendent Gunning mentioned, I went to the ASBA Law Conference. It was 2 full days of some pretty intense education from a legal standpoint. I attended sessions on emotionally charged board meetings, finance and budget, LGBTQ+ rights, COVID-19 mitigation, and diversity and equity according to the law. It was extremely informative with practical and useful information. I too am referencing my notes pretty much every day, and I have a lot of questions that I'll be getting out to various district staff here in the next couple of weeks. In addition, I attended the special governing board meeting on 8/17, the study session on 8/24, and numerous chats with Superintendent Gunning, as always. I'd like to close out my report tonight by expressing my enduring gratitude to the staff, teachers, and administrators, and my fellow board members who keep showing up to do your best at a job that you love. Super special thanks, though, tonight goes out to all of your and my behind the scenes teams, our spouses, partners, friends, children, and family who listen, support, and help balance out our lives. Special thank you to my husband and my children and my friends for being willing to learn more about school boardsmanship than you ever imagined. So I'll close out tonight with this lyric from Dave Matthews Band. The song is called "The Best of What's Around." So we can pull on through whatever tears at us, whatever holds us down, and if nothing can be done, we'll make the best of what's around. Turns out, not where, but who you're with that really matters. Thanks.
Thank you. Melissa?
So I had a lot to say, and then this past week, we lost a student and we lost a staff member, and suddenly all that didn't matter. We had a meeting last month that was hard with losing a board member, and some things were said that I agreed with and some things that I did not agree with. And I hope that we take the things that were said that we can learn from and grow from. But I also think that we need to acknowledge that being a board member has been a very difficult job this past year, especially. Every single one of us sitting up here has been attacked by community members at one point or another, every one of us. And those attacks come very personal to all of us. And so it's been a trying year, but I've had to think about, why am I here and what am I doing this for? And again, when we lost our staff member last week and we lost a student, I was like, I'm here because I care about my community, and I can care very deeply about our students. And I believe that everyone up here feels the same way. So I'm really hoping that our community can come together and find a way to find some common ground so that we can get back to caring about our students and what's best for them every day. Because that's what we're here for. Everything's gotten kind of ugly. It feels like politics have taken over everything, and politics have no place in our schools, in my opinion. And every decision that I vote on and I decide what I want, what I think is right, is because I decide what I think is best for students, and it has nothing to do with politics. So that I mean, I did things this month. We had meetings this month. I went and I attended the delegate assembly as our representative for the district, and that went mostly calmly. There's always somebody that likes to hear themselves talk, but at the end of the day, it was nice to be around a bunch of board members who are there, who care about students, and that's why we're doing this. So going forward, I'm hoping that whoever ends up filling our spot that's open is somebody that comes in ready to learn what it means to be a governing board. They come in with an open mind and an open heart, and that they are really ready to take on the job, because you have to have a thick skin to be up here. Because no matter what we do, no matter what decision we make, no matter what we say, somebody is going to be mad at us, and we are going to get an email the next day letting us know. So just please try to find kindness. That's all I wanted to say tonight, is I just want us to try and find kindness in our hearts and remember what we're doing here.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I will try to keep my board report brief. I also did attend the law conference with both Kim and Jody. It's informative as always. This year, there's been lots of changes in our state legislature. There's some federal cases. There's different things that are sort of weighing down on us now and that they haven't before. So it's always good to learn how we can continue to develop effective policies that make our school and district stronger. As a board, that's our primary function, is to make sure that those policies are in place, and hopefully we are doing that effectively. A few fun things that I got to do this past month, which we haven't been able to do until now, is attend some sporting events at our middle schools. Brado Heritage, L. Thomas Heck, Western Sky. It is so great to see family members, community members coming together again around children playing sports, all different sports, soccer, volleyball, not basketball yet. And it's just really great to see us trying very hard to get back to normal. So thank you to the staff and the students that are making that possible. I know we still have COVID protocols in place to keep everybody safe, but it sure is nice to see everybody back on campus and enjoying the things that we've missed over the last year. I also wanted to address our empty board seat. Over the last couple of weeks that we have had the vacancy, Jody and I met with Superintendent, the Maricopa County Superintendent, Steve Watson, and his staff, who has been extremely supportive in helping us to create a process and application to get those folks into the process. FYI, the deadline to submit an application to the school district is tomorrow. That application can be found on our website, lesd79.org, under the governing board section of our website. As Melissa mentioned, that this is a difficult job, but every single one of us are up here doing this, unpaid volunteer job because we do like it. There are certain days that we don't, I'm sure, that if you caught us, but it is a worthwhile position, and I really do encourage anyone who's interested in rolling up their sleeves and doing the hard work to come and join us. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to call the superintendent's office at the district. They will get you connected with whatever you need. You can also contact Steve Watson's office directly. What other quick thing I wanted to address before we adjourn is a very heartfelt thank you to all of the folks at every campus and every household, on every bus and every district office, to say thank you for stepping in and stepping up. We have shortages everywhere. We have shortages in our teachers and our guest teachers, in our student transporters, student monitors. You've heard a lot of these tonight. These are very serious issues, and I think the district is doing a really good job of trying to mitigate any losses from that, but also try to effectively recruit and hold on to the great people that we do have. We've been lucky, I will say, and probably because of a lot of hard work, to retain a good portion of our staff year over year. COVID has presented some unique challenges, so I would just offer this to the folks that are disappointed and upset about some of the shortages and how they are affecting your family. I would encourage you to help step in and support us if there is a way that you can share that message. If you yourself would be interested in being a guest teacher or a student bus driver or any of the other positions, it's time for us all to unite and solve this problem. And the only way we're going to do that is getting more people in the pipeline. We can't leave it to others at this point because there are no others left to leave it to. So I encourage you to, again, roll up your sleeves and get involved, share the message, talk about this in our community with your friends and family if you are not able to do that. We really need it, and more importantly, we really appreciate it. And with that, I will close out and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I will second. Perfect. All those in favor? Aye. Aye.